This
That's good.
conference will now be recorded.
Yep. So here we go, an official welcome to everyone for joining our MLOps Specialization program, the course demo. So please make sure you stay till end of this particular program. Okay. So let's get started without wasting much of our time. Here we go. 1 second, folks. Let me just make my arrangements here. So I can see a few people are rising and hands. So please make sure you stay till end of this program. Definitely, I will be opening a Q&A so you can talk to me. That's awesome. Okay. So saying that, here we go. Let's get started. A quick intro about us, right? As a Citron Technologies that I'm talking about. Let me just quickly unmute my camera. So let's see if I can, if you guys can able to see me. Okay, so here we go. Yep, I believe yes, you could able to see me. Yeah. Hey folks, this is Sharath. So I'm a founder and CEO of Citron Technologies as well as a trainer. I mean, just imagine Citron Technologies what we are. So I mean, simple. Anything related to data science, MLOps, right? On a cloud, right? So or maybe on premises that we're talking about. We are the best peoples outside. So please Google and just check what we are, Citron Technologies. So more about us, yeah, you can go ahead and check. So I will be a trainer obviously for the next 2 hours. So I will make sure that you learn MLOps, and I will make sure that you become a creator. Okay, saying that, so let's get started. So I'm going to mute my mic, otherwise you will be having my face everywhere, right? So let's get started. That's awesome. So there is a three solid reasons I said, right, why you should not leave this meeting for the next 2 hours, right? So this demo session will be for the next 2 hours. Please make sure you stay till end of this program. As I mentioned, so in order to know how does your career is going to look like for the next 10 to 15 years in AI, so please make sure you stay till end of this program. So MLOps can be the solid solution for that. So followed by that, we have arranged an awesome demo, right? So how these organizations makes their AI to the production, right? So people talk about AI, but how that come to the production? What kind of automation that we build? To know that, please make sure to end of this program. And more than that, right? So everyone, definitely, there's no doubt about it, including me, including you. We need a better lifestyle, a better a pay scale job. That all we need a right skill, the right career could able to pay the amount of salary. So that's where exactly we're looking for AI as a career, right? So AI is the umbrella. Underneath it, a lot of things comes in picture. You can become a data scientist, you can become ML engineer, you can become MLOps engineer, right? So as simple as that. So let's get started. Okay, so these are the three things going to be a highlight of this particular demo. So what we going to revolve around for this three, I mean, for this 2 hours are going to be on these three things. So what is this MLOps is really about, and what it takes to master MLOps, right? So here I'm talking about not to just gain some basics overview of MLOps. I want you guys to be an expert, right? That's why for a reason we call it as MLOps specialization. It's not MLOps basic. So how can you able to learn an MLOps in a 360 degree, right? So then comes, how can you make your career so much powerful and high paid job a better lifestyle, right? That's what exactly we are focusing on, right? So saying that, so let's get started. Okay, here we go, a beautiful picture. So let's get started with that. So I mean, so what are the session that we conduct in terms of AI and data science? We start with this beautiful picture like a tradition. Okay, so I would like to make this session more interactive. Here we go. I want you guys to observe this picture and go ahead and try to describe this particular picture in the chat window. So what do you think this picture is about? So what kind of things that you could able to recognize from this picture? Try to describe it. Maybe not a brief description, just go ahead and type something that you can capture from this particular picture. Okay, go ahead, use your chat window. So what do you find in this picture? This looks awesome, right? If I have a place like this, I would like to simply go ahead and spend a time over here. There's no doubt about it. So I would like to sit for the entire day. There's no doubt about it. Okay, here we go. The first command. So Balamugan says it's a dog show. That's awesome. Okay, that's good. So Jai says it's a morning walk with pets. That's awesome. That's good. Let's see how what other people says. And yeah, here we go. The commands are just pouring in. So guys exercising. That's awesome. So dogs everywhere. A park. That's awesome, right? So obviously we everyone knows this is a beautiful picture of a park. There's no doubt about it. We can see there's a lot of dogs, and even there are different breeds of dogs, right? Isn't it? And you can see there's a lot of trees outside, and so obviously there is a beautiful path where I can walk, and there are men and there is a women everywhere, right? So we know what is this picture is about, and we want to spend a time in a park like this. That's awesome. Yeah, we will do that. So but that's not my question. The question is not about, so what is this picture is about. Okay, so my question is a bit different. Okay, so let me just reiterate my question here. Okay, the question is simple. How do you know this is a picture of a park? Okay, so who taught you this is how the park looks like? You guys are saying this is a picture of a dog, right? How do you know this is a picture of a dog? How do you validate it? Why can't this be a picture of a cat? So why can't be this a picture of a tiger or a leopard? So how do you know this is a picture of a dog, right? So, and how do you know this is a picture of a man? And how do you know this is a path where you can walk? And how do you know this is a trees, right? So what could be the solid reason, right? But let's try to understand. If I'm go ahead, I'm going to take the same picture. I'm going to show the same exact picture to this newborn baby, maybe less than 1 year old, right? So do you think the baby could able to recognize everything that you could able to recognize right now? Probably not, right? It's hard. So baby barely could able to recognize his mother and father, but apart from that, the baby doesn't know anything else. So but what if I go ahead and display the same picture to this a little bit a grown up kid? Yes, a kid could able to recognize something, right? And for example, let's say if I go ahead and show the same picture to this grown up adult, he can describe beautifully, right? As you guys are doing right now, right? So why? So why is this picture? Why is this description? We are talking about what we call it as AI, an artificial intelligence. Where it starts from us, as simple as that. So we are a biological machines. So we are the best examples of what we call it as AI. So all human beings are trying to do, they're just trying to replicate what we are. They're trying to create an intelligent machines like us, right? So obviously guys, just consider that. So as a newborn baby, we born with an empty brain. So it doesn't mean that it's an empty, but it's an empty of a society, right, that I'm talking about. So let's say, for example, if a baby grows, right? So obviously parents are the best teachers. We started learning things from our parents, right? So for example, we started going for the schools, we started learning from our teachers, we started learning from our books, we make friends, we understand what's a technology, and we understand AI is a future, we get into the AI, right? Obviously, so we know that. So consider that as a human beings, you consume data in many different fashion. Consider that. So let's say as a human beings, you consume a data through our eyes. Visually, you can able to see my picture, you can able to see your screen, you know what is happening in a screen. That's a one form of data you're consuming. You're consuming a data through your ears. You can hear, you can able to hear the audio. You can able to consume a data through your nose. You can smell things. You can smell how biryani smells like. You know what is our difference between a Hyderabad biryani, Delhi biryani, a Pakistan biryani, whatever it is, right? So you can able to smell a biryani. You consume a data in some fashion, right? And we learn and learn. Let's say, for example, in each and every stage, the knowledge that you gain is keep on improvising, right? So the learning curve exponentially grows up, right? And finally, we expire in one day. But we are not talking about that. That's a topic for a different thing. But we are talking about each and every day we learn something, we eventually get better in that. As a biological machines, you can able to make a decision, you can able to predict what's going to happen in the future, right? That's what exactly machines, AI want to do for us today, right? So simply what human beings are trying to do, the same way we had learned a data, way we could able to make a decisions and predictions for the future. So we want to teach the same exact things to these dumb machines. Yes. So hardly these machines could able to understand zeros or ones, right? So we are trying to teach the same exact things what we have learned. See, consider that similar to way we could able to consume a data in many different ways, right? Still a machine could able to consume a data in many different ways. Okay, let's talk about a simple form of a data. Let's talk about in a simple document. Okay, so let's say I'm going to take a simple document. This can be a CSV document, simple. So let's say this CSV document has around 3 years of old data that I've collected. So it has 30,000 rows in it. So what is this data? This data could be an electricity data that I collected from your home. So consider that I put up some sensors in your home. I collected amount of electricity that you consume, the voltage, the current, the bills that you might have paid for the last 3 years, right? What we call it as an historical data because it's a history, right? So last 3 years. So my goal is pretty much simple. My goal is I want to take this data and I want to teach this data to this machine. Okay. this machine, what's going to happen, it's going to try to understand the pattern from your data. I mean, how you consume a data in spring, how you consume data, I mean, how you consume an electricity in winter, how your electricity consumption looks like in a monsoon, right? So, and it learns a pattern from your data, and then it creates something called machine learning model. So what we call it as a machine learning model, there are different kind of models that we are talking about, right? We are talking about a classical machine learning model, we are talking about large language models today, we are talking about generative AI models. All they are ML models, right? So this ML model is going to be part of final end product. Model is not an end product, but it is going to be part of final end product. So once you have an access to this model, we can able to ask some questions to this model. Maybe I can ask this ML model to make a forecast, a simple thing, but yeah, it really works. Let's say I'm going to ask this ML model to make a forecast for the next 6 months. What will be my electricity bills going to look like? So what will be my first month bill? What's going to be a second and sixth month's bill? So just imagine you can able to predict what's your next 1 year bill is going to look like. Just imagine such kind of a use case. You can able to build it for any corporates. Just imagine how much money they could able to save and how much money that you can able to make. I mean, this is a one simple example, right? But let's say the kind of a problems that you can solve is endless, right? But instead of that, instead of teaching us tabular data like CSV file, I'm going to take a bunch of pictures of a dogs and bunch of pictures of a cats. I'm going to teach a difference between a cat and a dog to my machine, right? And then again I'm going to create a ML model, which is going to be part of final end product. Then I'm going to put a picture, I mean, I'm going to put a live cat. Let's say I have a camera which is attached to my device. I'm going to put a live cat on my camera. So then my machine is going to predict, okay, there's a cat that is standing in front of your camera. So for example, computer vision, what we call anything that we can able to do with pictures and images. Then we talk about NLPs. Then we talk about large language models like chat GPT services that we do have, right? So this is all about what we're calling it as AI today, right? So but the question is, this is a process of you taking a data, teaching a data to a machine, and we build a ML model. This is a process. But how does this model makes to the production? How does this models comes to your plate? As simple as that. Let's try to understand that. So let's try to understand in a very basic level. So what is a typical workflow of creating a successful machine learning model? So what is the minimal requirements we have, right? So let's start discussing on that. So the minimum requirements for the process of building an ML model, right? So as I mentioned, like a human beings, we consume our data in many different ways. A machine can also consume a data in many different types. Your data can be a format of a picture, isn't it? A JPEG. Your data can be a format of CSV files. It can be a JSON document, a text document. A data can be anything, right? So the first step in a workflow, folks, what we do, we take this raw data, right, which comes from your customers. And the first step in a workflow, what we call it as preparation, a data preparation, right? So what is this data preparation? It's similar to what we do in your kitchen. Yes, as simple as that. So what we do in a kitchen, let's say if you I mean, if you can able to cook a food, I mean, if you want to prepare your favorite recipe of a food, what do you do? The first step, we go to a market, right? So we go to the market, we start buying some vegetables, ingredients, whatever you need, right? Then we come back to home, we started cleaning these vegetables. We start cleaning the vegetables and we remove unnecessary stuff, right? So because so we need to clean it, right, for preparing. Then we started putting some ingredients and masala and oil. We started preparing our favorite recipe, right? That's what exactly you do it in kitchen, right, for cooking your food. The same thing that we do with the data. See what happens, the real time data, the raw data that comes from your customer, that comes with a lot of garbages in it. It will have a missing values. Some of the columns would be empty, some of the rows in your data can be empty, right? So and you might be having something, what we call it as outliers. So what our data engineers or data scientists is someone called, so they will be taking a data, they will be cleaning it, preparing it, and transforming it, similar to what we do in our kitchen, right? So once the data is clean and prepared and clean, then we get into the process, what we call it as experiments. So what is this experiments? So who builds a model here? So data scientist, a person called data scientist is someone who's going to build a model, ML model. So so what happens here, the ultimate game, we need to take this data that is clean and prepared, and we want to take this data, teach this data to a machine understands a pattern, it can produce an ML model. For that first step, you will be taking an IDs like Jupyter notebooks, VS code. So what is this IDs? Those are the IDs where you can able to write a code, a Python, R, JavaScript, whatever it is, right? So why I need to write the code? Simple. You have a data, so you need to take this data. A data is in one location. You need to take this data. You want to teach this data to a machine. So what kind of a machine? You want to use a CPU based machine, you want to use a GPU based machine, some kind of a server in a cloud, who knows what kind of a machine you need, right? So for that you need to write a code tells where is your data, where which kind of a machine it is, right? So then once we have a code, we started executing this code. So then we take our data, we started teaching the data to a machine. So what we call it as learning, right? So machine learns the data, then it creates what we call it as a machine learning model, right? So consider that in the process of you producing an ML model, you want to test it, right? So for example, let's say you're teaching a kid goes to a school, he learns a science, and let's say you want to evaluate the particular kid is really performing good or not. So what do? You do an examination, right? Similar to that, once you have a model that is ready, we do have something called a test data, the data that we keep aside for testing your model. Then we test your model with that test data, and you analyze the results. If you're really good at, I mean, if your model has produced a really good quality results, that's good, you're really okay to take this model and go ahead and deploy it to the production. Okay, so but consider that throughout the life cycle, right? So throughout the life cycle, you're not going to produce only one model, you're going to produce multiple models. Just imagine it's like a software. So throughout the life cycle of any software, do you think we will be producing only one version of a software? Are we going to produce multiple versions? Definitely, right? Multiple versions. As simple as that. Throughout the life cycle, we will be producing multiple versions of your ML models. And how do I store and manage these ML models, right? So this is where what we call it as model registries comes into the picture. So model registries are dedicated tools that we can able to use it for versioning your ML models here. So there are different kind of model registries that you could able to use. So if I want to name one, I would say MLflow. It's a pretty much famous tool that you need to know. Otherwise, every cloud like AWS or Azure or GCP, they have their own model registries. Okay, that's good. So we have a best model. Let's say I have a first version of a model. Good. So now I want to take this model, I want to go ahead and deploy this to the production. So what's the steps? So consider that if you want to deploy a model to the production, there are different scenarios is being followed by every organization, folks. See, consider that each and every organization's requirements are different. Some organizations, they might use AWS, Azure, GCP. They want to deploy it on a premises, they want to use tools like Dockers or Kubernetes or something like that, right? So maybe you want to dockerize your model, you want to deploy to the Docker platform or maybe a cloud. So possibilities are endless, right? So consider that here I'm taking a model, the version 1, and I'm trying to dockerize it, I'm trying to deploy it on a Docker platform. Okay, so that's it, the model got deployed. What is the next step? Then comes creating a client applications. So then comes your app developers, maybe a front end developers, someone who builds a beautiful web applications and an Android app like this. So some kind of a UI that we can able to use it to interact with an ML model. So that's how the complete end to end might look like. But this is a typical, I mean, this is a basic workflow how it looks like. Okay, but how does a production automation is going to look like? Let's talk about that. So we do understand, so what is machine learning is all about, right? Machine learning is all about study of an algorithm and a mathematical model. So basically that your computers, the servers in a cloud that uses to progressively improve on a specific task. Simple, it's all about teaching complex mathematical models, right, to your machine. So once machine understands that, it produces a model, and we can ask this model some questions, right, to predict a future. So saying that, here comes our data scientist is someone who builds this model. So he uses programming languages like Python or R or Go. I mean, he writes a program and he will be doing this stuff, right? So but as an MLOps professionals, do you build model? Definitely not, right? That we will discuss later. But the question is still unanswered. So what is MLOps? We haven't really started with that. So what is really the MLOps is all about? Let's talk about that. Before we talking about MLOps, it's time to understand, is this a right time for you to making your career shift, right? Is this your right time to getting into the MLOps journey, our AI journey? Do we have a right opportunity? This number says that yes. So this is the data which we captured from AWS AI conclave which happened in Bangalore, what we listened from an experts, a leads in a world of AI. Okay, so let's try to understand this. This number would also make more sense for you. So I'm talking about what we call it as a current state of machine learning. So what do you mean by current state of machine learning? Otherwise we can talk about, so what is the current state of machine learning across the globe? So what's every organizations are doing today right now, right? So if you understand that, you'll come to know whether we have a good market to getting into the MLOps or not. Okay, so what AWS says, let's say when we go for last decade, let's say let's go to last 10 years ago, maybe let's do a quick time travel and let's go to the last 10 years. Okay, let's try to understand. So last 10 years ago, I'm talking about maybe early 2010. Before that, maybe somewhere around 2000 2008 or something like that, right? So every organizations, if you see, they had a lot of data sitting in their organization, but they are doing nothing with that data. That's the time they started hiring a data engineers or a data scientist, someone who can able to build a model for them. See, the focus for the last 10 years for every organization is to just build a model, but productionization is not happening at all. So that's the game. So last 10 years ago, everyone is trying to build a model because they don't know how to make it to the production, what kind of a money they're going to make with that, right? And if we talk about today, I'm talking about beginning of 2023 till today, already you will see that 53% of organizations across the globe who has a POCs just building a models, now they are trying to making it to the production. And it takes an average 9 months for any organizations to reach that particular position. And by end of this year itself, right, so we are already in the end of year, right, 75% of organizations will start, I'm talking about, they will start shifting their ML models into production. So okay, that's good, they are going for the production. What's there for you is a question. So what makes an AI into the production is the question. So if you want to bring your AI to the production, you need some kind of a automation. That's where MLOps comes into the picture. So what is really MLOps is all about? So MLOps is a set of practice for the collaboration and communication between various different stakeholders who are part of building AI. So who are the people who will be part of building an AI? Not one, not two, there are many. So let's say we start from a data analyst and data engineers, right? So they play with data, they bring the data to the organization, they build data pipelines, right? Then comes a data scientist. So data scientist is someone who takes the data from our data engineers and he builds what we call it as ML model. He does this all the high level programming. So then comes ML engineer. ML engineers, we call it as deployment peoples. They take a model from data scientists, they go ahead and deploy it. Then comes our MLOps engineers. So MLOps engineers are someone who make sure the infrastructure is available for your AI team to do this. They want to do data preparation, model training, model deployment, all this stuff. MLOps engineers are someone who builds a complete automation end to end. So MLOps engineers are someone who maintains and deploys an infrastructure, for example, right? So that's where MLOps engineers comes into picture. There are different positions in MLOps. You can become a lead in MLOps, lead engineer, MLOps architect. Yes, there are architect kind of a positions, MLOps specialist kind of a roles, for example, right? So as we are talking about a collaboration and communication between all of them, what we call it as MLOps, right? So MLOps is all about implementing an automation to deliver your machine learning models or deep learning models. I'm talking about deep learning models, which is nothing but, I'm talking about your large language models. It can be your Gen AI models or class, any kind of a classical machine learning models to the production. So when we are trying to implement such kind of an automations, right, so it can able to increase the quality of any organization and how they simplify the management process of how we build, train, evaluate and deploy your ML models to production. So ML ops is all about building an automation, right? Good. Saying that, let's try to go ahead and let's try to understand the high level view of this ML ops. So MLOps motivation, what we call. So MLOps motivation, it's nothing but the discipline that sits intersection between various different domains, right? So we do have DevOps, machine learning and data engineering. So the intersection of all these three domains, what we call it as MLOps basically. So what we call it as machine learning operations basically. So let's say this intersection of practices, when they are coming together, it really drives a value in how you build, deliver and manage your machine learning models. So consider that in your organization or an organization that you're going to work tomorrow, you want to implement such kind of a practices, you need to have a people's process and right technology in place to make it happen, right? So that's what exactly what we're going to learn, the tools, the process, and people's like you, how you can able to be part of it, right? Okay, let's talk about some of the challenges that we do have traditionally, right? So obviously, there's no doubt about it. In the process of creating a machine learning workflows, we ran into a lot of different challenges. I mean, we know that ML model building involves multiple steps usually. I mean, data preparation, it can be a model training or model deployment steps. Okay, so but in a reality, folks, not only we have these steps, there's really a lot goes into stitching things together. So I mean, we want to stitch a data preparation with model training, a model training with model deployment. There's a lot goes into it. Let's try to decode one by one. Okay, so let's get started with data preparation. As we discussed already, data preparation is like a cooking, right? We take a data, so I mean, we take a raw data and eventually we split this data into training data, test data, or maybe an evaluation data set. We split it into three different types or two different types sometimes. Okay, so what we do in a data preparation step, so we take a raw data and we split it, right? So what we do in a model training step, it's all about taking a data and teaching a data to a machine. That's correct, but there are some additional steps inside your model training. So consider that whether you are doing a single model training or probably you might be doing a hyperparameter optimization. See, we are talking about a data science. See, what we call it as, when data science is an experiment. So what do you mean by experiment? Experiment is not something that you do only once. Experiment, that is something that we do again and again. That's why it is called experiment, right? So all our data scientists, what they will be doing is an experiment. So they will be trying to iterate and train multiple models to come up with the best version of a model. That's what exactly we call it as hyperparameter tuning. So consider that throughout this particular journey and throughout this life cycle, they will be producing a multiple different versions of models, because throughout the life cycle we won't be sticking to only one version. So consider that you might have version 1, version 2, version 3, etc. Okay, so we know that model training is an experiment. So now let's talk about a model deployment. Okay, now version 3 is good. I like that. So if the quality is good, for example. So now I want to take this version 3 of your ML model and you want to go ahead and deploy it to the production. See what happens in a production, what kind of a strategy that we follow in the model deployment process. So in your model deployment, you might have only one step in a workflow, or it could have multiple tasks underneath it. For example, you don't want to deploy your ML model directly to the production. See what happens. Before that, I want to take this model, I want to deploy it to something called staging environment. See, practically what happens, folks, once you have this model, let's say I have a version 3 of this model, before I'm going ahead and deploying this model to production, I deploy it to something called, what I call it as, staging environment. So what is this staging environment? The staging environment is an exact copy of a production, but there's no interconnection between them. So why I deploy this version 3 of this model to staging environment? Because the staging environment is only accessible by your internal team. Maybe I will say data scientist or senior data scientist, because they are the one who builds a model. Because I have deployed my ML model to staging environment, because I want to do some further testing. I just want to see how my model is going to work in production, but I cannot deploy to the production. I cannot take that risk because your users will face some downtime, some issues, right? So that's why I deploy the model to staging environment. My data scientist, senior data scientists, they do a further testing, and if they are really satisfied with the results that is produced, so then we go ahead and take this model, then we go ahead and deploy this model to the production, the same version of a model. That's how it's going to work. But I want some additional control in it. Okay, so what I do, instead of I'm going and automatically deploying a model to a staging and production, in between that I want some approval process. So what do you mean by approval process? Right, so let's say, for example, if I want to deploy my ML model, right, so to a staging environment or to my production environment, so maybe here I want to come and click on a button which says approval, to, because before you're approving, you can go ahead and verify the model that you're trying to deploy to the staging and to the production. So who does this? Maybe a senior data scientist, someone who is responsible for that. So he go ahead and check the quality of a model, and he go ahead and deploys a model to the production. So what we're talking about, manual approval process. So as I mentioned, so there are a lot of different steps here. So a lot of dependencies has to work together to ultimately build this and build out something that provides, let's say, iteration across the life cycle. And more important than this is also to provide an end-to-end traceability to track everything that's happening in your infrastructure. So you need to monitor what's happening in your data preparation, model training, model deployment, post deployment, and you have a complete infrastructure for that. So So, I mean, as I mentioned, this steps can be complicated and challenging, right? So let's talk about further steps, right? And let's try to understand even better. So there's a one more term that we keep on using it. So when we talk about MLOps as a term, so we also refer to something called DevOps, right? So probably most of, I mean, there might be a lot of people who might be joining here, so might be also coming from various different backgrounds, right? Okay, let's try to understand this. Let's try to understand DevOps. So DevOps is again an automation practice that we use in a traditional software industry, right? So DevOps is a practice that we use in order to deliver a newer version of our models to the production. Some people's, they might say, okay, DevOps and MLOps is same, but definitely not. DevOps and MLOps are different, but there are some traditional tools that we use in DevOps. We will be using it in MLOps. There are some relations here, but so, I mean, the CI/CD practices or source versioning practices, right, are exactly same. I mean, so the challenges that we discussed so far, what are the challenges that we do have in operationalizing machine learning models, has some common things when we compare with DevOps also. Like as I mentioned, CI/CD tools that we use already in a DevOps, source and version control practices that we do already in DevOps, they are going to be common in MLOps also. So that's where it could be an added advantage if you are a DevOps engineer, someone who is also looking for transforming into MLOps. This could be a easy piece of cake, I would say, because you're already coming from a DevOps background. Okay, that's good. Stories apart, but let's try to understand MLOps with a very sweet and simple story. Okay, are you ready for a story? Okay, I'm going to just give a quick story to understand this MLOps. Okay, so let's try. I mean, let's go to year 2020. Okay, let's do a time travel again. Let's go to the year 2020. Okay, simple. There is a data scientist in a 2020. He's building an ML model for theater owners. Okay, so I mean, he's building an ML model to make a prediction saying that how many tickets the owner is going to make us sales. I mean, how much money the theater owner is going to make. So that model is going to make a predictions for that. So, but consider that this data scientist has built a model. The model is good. That's awesome. But this data scientist and assured a client this model is going to perfectly work fine for the next 3 years in a production. There's no problem with that. So this is the assurance which is given by a data scientist. But what happened after deploying this model to the production? But let's consider that where the very important point here, this data scientist has not implemented any kind of an automation. No automation at all. He has prepared a model and deployed it manually, and he assured this model is going to work fine for completely 3 years, but that didn't. So model just failed in 3 months itself. So let's try to understand, right? Let's try to understand and analyze the situations here, why this model got failed in just 3 months itself. So you know what happened in year 2020, isn't it? Right, so that's the time the world has been hit by COVID, right? So when COVID came to the market, so no one went to theaters. I mean, we people started gradually reducing to going for theaters, right, day by day. Obviously we started stop watching movies in a theaters, right? Then at the COVID lockdown, we didn't go for theaters at all. But there's a one difference: we started watching more movies in COVID, but we didn't go for theaters. How? Because of OTTs. You know that OTTs are skyrocketed at that particular time, and there are new OTTs also born at that particular time. So we started subscribing to all the OTTs, right? We can able to watch the movie from home. And even after COVID today, right, in a year 2024, I would say there might be a small number of people who might be not going for theaters regularly, because we know that we have OTTs. If I wait for next 30 days, I can watch the same movie in a theater. So this is a story. But what is the story? How it is related to MLOps or AI? At end of the day, your customers are your data, right? So here the data scientist is building a model to predict your customer behavior. I mean, yeah, I mean, he's building an ML model to predict how many tickets they're going to sell. But he didn't implemented any kind of monitoring tools in order to understand this customer behavior, because the customers are going for theaters now. They have started gradually going for theaters, for example, right? So he couldn't able to monitor that because he don't have any model monitoring tools implemented. Because in case if he has any model monitoring tools implemented, he could able to came to know that. So technically we call it as data drift. It's nothing but changes in your customer behavior, right? So this is the one side of a story why the model has been failed. But there's another side of a story. Let's go to another side. Let's talk about your data first. Data is a lifeblood for your AI, because the entire AI industry relies on data. If an organization doesn't have a data and access to the data, or future access to the data, there's no point of talking about AI, MLOps, or anything, right? So, but let's consider the same use case. Your customer behavior has been changed couple of times, before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. So literally there are three different behaviors. That means you have a three different versions of your data. So when we talk about AI industry, your data will have versions. So what kind of a tool that you're going to use it in order to manage these different versions of data? Can we use GitHub for that? You might have heard about GitHub. So it's a place where we store and version a code. Definitely no, you cannot. Data can be in terabytes and petabytes. You cannot store it in tools like GitHub. So that's where a dedicated tools comes into the picture for tracking and versioning a data. We call it as data versioning tools. If I want to name one, I will call it as DVC, which stands for data version control. When we talk about Azure ML Studio, they have their own tool for versioning a data. Similarly, in AWS, they have one. Vertex AI in GCP, they have their one, right? So then comes, let's talk about the source code versioning tools. Consider that here your data scientist and even MLOps engineers, they write a lot of script. When I'm talking about script, don't get afraid. I'm not talking about high-end programming in Python. That will be done by your data scientist. But when it comes to MLOps engineers, they will be taking care of a code for infrastructure, the pipelines. It can be a JSON code. It can be ML script. I'm not talking about a code at all. It's just a human readable documents, right? So yes. So, and all this code has to be version somewhere. You know that. Let's say if you are a software developer, someone who writes the code, tell me how many times the code that you have written has been changed. Maybe 1,000 times, maybe more than that. Who knows, right? So this is where source code versioning tools like GitHub, something on AWS, something on Azure. They have Azure repos, Bitbucket. So there are different code versioning tools that comes into picture. He could have used it, but data this person didn't use it. That's why the model got also failed. So then comes model artifacts and model versioning. See, as I mentioned, throughout the life cycle of any AI industry, they don't stick to one version of a model. They might produce different versions of models. So what is the right kind of a tool that we can able to use in order to store, I mean, version your ML models? We cannot again use code repositories for this. So this is where dedicated tools comes into the picture. We call it as model registries. If I want to name one, I will say MLflow. So MLflow is a open source tool that you can able to use it for free today to version your ML models. But MLflow is not the only universal tool. AWS has SageMaker, they have their own model registry. Azure AML, they have own. Vertex AI and GCP, they have their own. Okay, so this could be a simple understanding of what kind of a tools that we do have. But I'm going to also provide you a flavors of tools that we do have here. Okay, saying that, let's get into the next step, right? The number two, what we need to learn here, what it takes to master MLOps, what it takes to specialize in MLOps. That's a question. Okay, let's say how many peoples that you're really interested in applying for lead positions in MLOps, someone who want to get started with an AI industry as an ML engineer or an MLOps engineer. Okay, so let's try to understand you guys much better here. Okay, so probably you guys are coming from various different IT backgrounds. You might be a software engineer, you might be a DevOps engineer, so you might be a data scientist, ML engineer. Okay, so please use your chat window. Let me try to understand. Before I'm going ahead, I'm talking about how to master this ML ops. Go ahead and mention if you are a working professional, what kind of a position that you hold, whether you are a data scientist, ML engineer, DevOps engineer, whether you are a student. Please go ahead and describe this in a chat window before we getting started with the point number two, how to master MLOps. So here we go. Like I can see the messages are pouring in. Asif says he's a lead. He's in a lead position. Software engineer, software developer. Vijay says a team leader. I mean, you can just specify whether you are you are a lead, but lead in what? Team leader. Vijay says team leader in DevOps, MLOps. I mean, data scientist. Where? So Ramesh says is in a cloud ops. That's awesome. So then comes Shaurabh says is a data scientist. So then we have Parth says software engineer. That's awesome. Alfine says is AI engineer. Kamal says data analyst. Vikas is a let's see, DevOps engineer. That's awesome. Shubham says data associate. That's awesome. So Deepanshu says he's an AI hacker. That's awesome. So yeah, so a lot of varieties of peoples that we do have. I believe others could also see that, right? So I can see we have data scientists also, the AI engineers, a lot of AI engineers. So Kiran is an AI engineer, Abdul a team leader, cloud solution architect. So yeah, that's awesome. So Deep is a DevOps engineer, senior associate, automation engineer, Abhishek. Yeah, that's awesome. So there's a lot of varieties of roles that we do have here, right? Yeah, perfect. So can we get started right now? So if those people who didn't mention that, go ahead and mention that in a chat window. So let's go ahead and let's talk about so what it takes to master MLOps, first of all, right? So in order to understand what it takes to master MLOps, let's get into the next slide. Let's try to understand the MLOps components, and let's try to understand the complete workflow, what it takes to master MLOps, and how does the MLOps end to end would look like. Okay, so here we go. So MLOps components. So MLOps components are going to look like this, folks. I mean, every organization, they will be starting with a use case discovery. They should have an access to the use case. They should have an access to let's say enough data, right? And they need to have an access to a data in a future also. They need to make sure that they can able to harvest the data, right? So once we have a right use case, we have a data engineering team who does a data engineering, get the data, build data pipelines, all this stuff. Then we build a machine learning pipelines, so where we build an automation. So once we have a data, then we build an automation for building these models automatically. So once we have a models which is built in an automated way, then we take these models and we go ahead and deploy these models to the production in an automated way again. And then comes we implement monitoring tools in order to monitor the complete production. I mean, we need to monitor the complete infrastructure as well as the models that you are deployed so far. Let's say if I want to dive deep into each and every scenarios, let's get started with the feasibility study, the use case identification, all those stuff, right? So the first we'd be starting from understanding the business, the kind of a problem that we need to solve. We do use case identification, so data understanding, so whether let's say what kind of a data, what kind of a problems that we can solve. So they do all the feasibility study, right? The first part, this part is all about identifying whether we can able to solve some problem with the data that we do have in an organizations, right? So once we have that, then comes a data preparation, right? The step where we take a data, we clean it. Then comes learning about an algorithm. So what is this algorithms? Algorithms are softwares like ML frameworks like TensorFlow, Apache MXNet, PyTorch. So this will be handled by our data scientist. He picks a right kind of an algorithm that we can able to use it to teach this data to a machine. So then comes the process of we go ahead and build an ML models, right? And as I mentioned, a data science is an experiment. You cannot produce the best quality ML model in a one shot. So you do an experiment again and again, a data scientist, and he produces the best version of a model. So how do you know the model that you have produced is fit to be deployed in a production? That's where the model evaluation comes into the picture, right? So this is where we test and extract a lot of different metrics out of it. So consider that, how do you evaluate a students who go for a school based on his progress, based on the results from his exam, right? Let's say if he has scored more than 60 percentage, I would say he's a good student, right? If he is scoring less than 60 percentage, I would say it's a bad student. In the same way, we have a metrics that we can able to use in order to measure the best quality model here. Okay, so then comes model serving. So now we have a model, now we need to take it and go ahead and deploy it to the production, right? So this is where again the automations also comes into picture. We have an automation in the process of building this complete model. Then again we have an automation in the process of going ahead and deploying your ML model to production. So consider that I take a model, I want to deploy it to various different platforms. Who knows, I want to deploy it to the Dockers, Kubernetes, AWS, Azure, GCP, right? So I do use an automation for that. I go ahead and deploy that to the production. Then we keep on operating it. So then I implement my model monitoring tools. I started learning a lessons from it. So I started learning how my customer data looks like, how it changes, and based on that I learn the lessons. I keep on optimize it. So what do you mean by optimize? Maybe once in every 6 months I take a new data of my customer, I build a new model, right? That's how the things work. So saying that, let's try to get some very deep insight about the world of MLOps here. Okay, so what today every organizations are achieving to do, that's what exactly I'm trying to teach you guys. So what we are talking about, the automated ML pipelines versus a CI/CD ML pipelines. So what do you mean by that? So the traditional way of building machine learning models, right? I mean, we take a data, prepare a data. I mean, and then we started teaching a data to a machine, what we call it as model training. Then we have a model, we go ahead and deploy it, right? This is a traditional way of building a model. But today, every organization want to move from there to completely incorporated CI/CD pipelines. So what is this completely incorporated CI/CD pipelines? Okay, so let's get started. This is the term that we regularly use in a AI industry, someone who is trying to implement automation. We call it as MLOps maturity level. So what do you mean by MLOps maturity level? See, what happens, folks, not every organization on a day one, they implement complete automation. See, every organization, they focus on ML model building exercise. That's what exactly they're doing for last 10 years. That's what exactly the data said, right? So last 10 years ago, everyone is building a models. They have a models right now, but now they want to start implementing an automation. So we call it as MLOps maturity level. So consider that every organization in a level 0, they don't have any automation. So once they go to level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4, so level 4 is the highest level of automation that you can able to implement today. So level 1, that's where the automation starts, right? So doesn't matter, each and every organization, they have a different requirements in how they implement automation. So they want to go for level 1, level 2, level 3. Our high level automation is level 4. So the architecture that you're currently looking at, it's a level 4 architecture. Level 4 workflow it is. So what do you mean by level 4? Level 4, what we call it as an automated retraining pipelines. So what do you mean by automated retraining pipelines? Everything is automated here. So consider that, what is a basic workflow? We take a data, we prepare it, teach it, then we have a model, then we go ahead and deploy it, right? So here everything is automated. So consider that we'll be getting started with the ML project identification again. So we know that organizations will have a use case. We don't want to talk much about that. So here, let's get started with the data first. So consider that we already discussed your data will definitely have different versions. Your data will change tomorrow. So this is where we started implementing data version control tools, tools that we use it for versioning your data. Good. Followed by that, then comes the next step in a workflow is data pre-processing. And we want to automate a data pre-processing. We don't want our data scientist, someone who want to manually run a code to build this model, right? So here comes our data engineers or data scientists. They write a data engineering code, and we know that the code that you write will definitely change. That's why we integrate code repositories here. It can be GitHub, something on AWS, it can be Azure repos, anything where we can store and version your code. And then comes in the process of you building an ML model, a data scientist would have been written a code over there, and we want to run this code in an automated way. So again, this code will also change. We want to also version this code in a code repositories. Then comes the next step in a workflow is model training. We want to take this data, we start teaching this data automatically. So this is where integration of feature stores, what we call it as, comes in picture. So what is this feature stores? So feature stores are basically a schema repositories. They are not databases. We don't store a data there. So then what is this feature stores as? So this feature stores will have a features that is needed to train your ML model. For example, let's say we want to train an ML model to predict an electricity bills. So what are the features plays very important role? The voltage, the current, the bills that you might have paid for the last 3 years, maybe the amount of power that you have consumed, right? So these are the features. So consider that your feature stores can have a versions of your features. So consider that together voltage and current and bill, this can be a version 1 of my feature. Together voltage, current, bill and power, this can be a version 2 of my feature. So what we have ultimately in a feature store is a features, the descriptions, the data types of the particular features. So with the schema in a feature store, with the data, we fetch the right kind of data, then we started training an ML model. See what happens next. Once you have an ML model, we produce model artifacts, and this model artifacts has to be stored in some kind of a storage repository, but we cannot go ahead and store it in a GitHub. That's where model registries comes into the picture. So model registries, as we discussed, they are the dedicated tools where we can go ahead and register your ML models, right? So if I want to name one, I mentioned MLflow or something on SageMaker, something on Azure Machine Learning Studio, you can able to use it. So yeah, we go ahead and version your ML models to model registry. So then now we need to take a best version of a model. Maybe I have version 1, 2, 3. Version 3 is the latest one. I want to take the version 3 of this model. Automatically I want to go ahead and deploy it to the production, right? I want to go ahead and integrate it. So consider that I want to integrate and deploy it. Maybe you want to deploy to Dockers, Kubernetes, and many different options, right? So consider that we deploy it in some kind of a virtual machine, a real-time endpoint, what we call. So then comes operation. We keep on operating it on production. Then comes model monitoring tools. So we started keeping monitoring your ML models. So what we call it as a traceability and end-to-end traceability. Consider that you have this complete infrastructure. You have an infrastructure for your data pre-processing, model training, CI/CD pipelines, where you build an automation, and all those tools that we need, right? Feature stores, model registries. The complete infrastructure has to be monitored, including your ML models, right? So then comes an automated quality gates here. So what is this automated quality gates? You have an automated quality gates at the time of deployment. You have an automated quality gates at the time of data preparation also. So what is this automated quality gates? Every organization, if they want to deploy their AI to the production, they have some kind of a benchmarks. So consider that, let's say a data scientist is training a regression model, right? So all the data scientist relies on a metrics to decide whether it's a best model, can we go ahead and deploy the model to production. So for example, we stick to a matrix called MSC. Doesn't matter what is MSC is. MSC stands for mean square error. It's a kind of a matrix our data scientist will stick to deploy this model to production. So consider that if my MSC score is less than or equal to 7, right? This is the benchmark. If this is true, right? If this is true, I go ahead and register my ML model to model registry. If it is false, I won't register my model to model registry at all. So that's how the quality gate works. In the same way, you can also have a automated quality gates at the side of a data pre-processing also. Let's say if your data is not clean and prepared, your pipelines will stop in that particular stage itself, right? So this is what it takes to build a level 4 architecture projects basically. So in this particular program, so we will be building at least one level 4 project in every cloud and open source tools. So we'll talk about that one in detail. So saying that, so you know that you guys described, right? So you guys are coming from various different backgrounds. You might be a software architect, cloud architect. So you can be an architect, DevOps engineer, anyone, right? You have your role here. So let's try to understand the different roles involved in MLOps and more. So consider that single person definitely cannot build this entire solution by itself, right? So developing a successful machine learning project involves varieties of expertise and requires extreme collaboration, right? So for example, these roles are definitely related to the companies, how they want to frame it, right? The names can be different. What kind of a skills they're looking forward is basically what we are really interested in, right? So it can be a data analyst, data engineers, data scientist, or anyone, right? So consider that a data analyst is someone who works closely with a business team, and so basically what he will be doing, he will be driving insights from the user data, right? So you will be using a range of tools like data visualization tools, like Power BI, a Tableau, a SQL, or Excel sheets for that particular reason. So then data analyst also plays a very important role at the side of monitoring your complete infrastructure in your operations. It can be monitoring your ML models and such. So then comes our data engineers. Data engineers make sure they have an infrastructure to collect, transform, pre-process their data. So our data engineers will be working with ETL tools, Spark, Hadoop. They will be working with, let's say, data versioning tools that we discussed, feature stores that we discussed. Then comes our dear data scientist. So obviously a data scientist is someone who builds an ML model which is going to be part of final end product. So he will be using Python, as I mentioned, writing loads of Python to build this model, as well as he will be working with model registries, data versioning tools, feature stores, model deployment tools, etc. So then comes research or applied scientist, for example, right? So who is this research or applied scientist? You don't see this role in every company, especially organizations who are working in a cutting edge technologies. You see this role. So for example, uh, I mean, they will be developing a new algorithms which can be part of a final end product, right? So then comes ML engineers or DevOps engineers, we call, right? So in ML industry, we call it as let's say ML engineers sometimes. So not DevOps engineers. We don't use that name here. So okay. So what we do? So ML engineers are basically, we call it as deployment peoples. What they do, they work closely with a data scientist, and they take a model that is built by them. They go ahead and deploy it. So then comes, you can be a developer, right? So for example, you can be a developer, someone who want to create the final client side application, right? You can be a cloud engineer, a cloud architect, someone who will be working along with your team to deploy the infrastructure, for example, right? Then comes an ML engineers, right? So ML engineers, it can be the role that you can be also part of. So MLOps engineers, what they do, so MLOps engineers are someone who builds this complete automation. We need this pipeline, right? The pipeline will be built by them. And let's say if you're looking for a lead positions in MLOps, like MLOps lead architect, specialist kind of roles, you will be also taking care of designing the architecture, deploying the infrastructure, all those stuff, right? So yeah, this could be the possible roles where you can be part of, and especially based on your experience. Maybe DevOps engineers, so I would recommend you to go for ML engineers. Or anyone, let's say if you're a data scientist, still you need an ML ops. But consider that you're coming from any other backgrounds, like you might be a software developer, a Java developer, you might be a software tester. ML ops engineer is something that would really work. We'll discuss that in detail later. Okay, saying that, so do you want to get a flavors of different tools that's outside in the market for MLOps? Different tools for MLOps? Yes, let's try to get into that. So in this different flavors of tools that I'm talking about, I didn't put all those tools across this globe, but try to, in order to understand the different categories of tools that we use throughout this journey, the tools that we need for data versioning, experiment tracking, code versioning, model registration, model monitoring, etc. Right? So let's get into that. So we do understand the process of we building a models, right? So all we do, we take a data, right? Then we do data exploration. It's all about taking a data, cleaning and preparing it. Then comes the next workflow is taking a data and started teaching a data to a machine, so which we call it as model training and evaluation. Then once the model is ready, finally we go ahead and deploy this ML model to the production. So this is the traditional step. If you want to implement an automation on top of it, right? So you want to put some automation wrapper on top of it. So this could be the different flavors of tools that we might use. Like let's get started with the development IDEs here. So development IDEs are basically an IDE where your data scientist, data engineer, someone who's going to write the code, or even an MLOps engineer, they will be writing an infrastructure code, maybe the ML scripts, JSON documents, or something like that. So it can be a Jupyter notebooks, a VS code, or Spider, anything, right? IDEs can be different. So then comes a code versioning tools. Obviously, we discussed about the importance of versioning a source code, right? Your code will definitely change. There are different kind of code versioning tools are available. It can be GitHub, Bitbucket, etc. So then comes some of the tools related to our data scientists. For example, data labeling tools. Our data scientists will start labeling a data. So for that, we do have a different tools. For example, AWS has something called ground truth, right? So then comes data exploration and data visualization tools. Again, these tools are specific to our data scientists. So data exploration and visualization is very important because as a human beings, we are a visual beings. We see visually, we understand that, right? So our data scientists, they will be using a different kind of data visualization tools. It can be Matplotlib, Seaborn, Pandas, etc. for that. Then comes for a feature engineering. So AI is all about features, right? So then comes here, we use a feature engineering tools. It can be a sklearn, or it can be, let's say, completely a no code tools like feature tools, or you want to use your own open source tool like Feast for that particular reason. Then comes another set of tools for our data scientist is model training. So for example, model trainings, here we are talking about algorithms, the kind of an ML frameworks you can use. So starting from sklearn, PyTorch, it can be TensorFlow, XGBoost, etc. You can use different algorithms for that reason. Okay, now you're going to use these algorithms to build a model, but now you want to make a quick POC, a proof of concept, just to check whether it's working or not. For that, you can go ahead and deploy these models into Jupyter notebooks or Streamlit, etc. Right? So followed by that, then comes model debugging and visualization tools, right? So where you want to debug and monitor the tools, there are some monitoring tools here like TensorBoard, weights and biases, etc. for monitoring purposes. And our data scientist, they will be doing hyperparameter optimization. As I mentioned, data science is an experiment. For that, they will be using different hyperparameters, different SDKs that's available in the cloud, like Keras and Keras tuner, tuner, etc. Right. So then comes experiment tracking tools, the tools that are common for data scientists and also for ML ops engineers. For example, you want to track these experiments, you want to decide what is the best performing model. So we can use tools like MLflow, which is the best tool that's outside in the market, or maybe commercial tools like Neptune.ai. So this slide also has a commercial tools, like it's a paid subscription based tools also. Then comes model packing. So consider that you want to pack this model and you want to go ahead and deploy this model to the production. So there are various different ways you can able to pack your ML model. You can able to pack your ML model in a form of MLflow, TensorFlow, or you want to try to deploy your ML models on cloud like SageMaker in AWS or Azure ML, or you want to deploy it on open source tools like Kubeflow, right? So there are different techniques and tools. And then comes model serving. Model serving is all about model deployment. So where are you going to deploy a model? It can be anywhere, right? You want to deploy it on a clouds like AWS, Azure, GCP, or you want to put it on your premises itself. So they have their own tools. Like here is a logo of SageMaker, but all the clouds to be included. And we have other commercial tools like Bento ML also. Saying that, let's talk about the workflow orchestration tools, where you can build an automation tools, again specific to our MLOps engineers. So we can able to use range of different workflow orchestration tools. It can be Apache Airflow or Kubeflow, ZenML. So a lot of open source tools are commercial tools like Olahai. Are cloud platforms, they have their own tools. SageMaker Studio, we call, they have their own orchestration tools similar to Azure ML and Vertex AI. And if you're looking for various different data versioning tools, here we go. I did mention about DVC, but DVC is not only the one, but there are a lot of other tools like Git large files, or you can also use commercial tools like Olahai. Then comes model registries. We discussed about dedicated tools for versioning your ML models to model registries, where we can version it. So pretty much a famous tool, it can be MLflow. And you can also use other tools like weights and biases, Olahai, which is commercial one. And let's say you need a tools for monitoring your ML models, which is deployed to the production. I would name, there are pretty much famous open source tool, I would say evidently AI, but there are a lot of other tools. But here I mentioned Seldon, Fiddler, or Vitra example. Every cloud, they have their own SDKs that you can able to use it for model monitoring. Finally, we discussed about feature stores. It's a dedicated repositories where we store and version your features. So Feast is a pretty much famous open source one. Or every cloud, SageMaker or Azure ML or Vertex AI, they have their own tool. Or if you want to go for commercial one, you can go for Tecton. So this is the different flavors of tools that is outside, that is available in the market today. But depends on an organization. There are, I mean, based on their requirement, they opt for a different tool, right? Okay, saying that, let's try to understand the key features of this MLOps tools. Like if you want to become a specialist in MLOps, like the specialists are basically, they make sure that they pick the tool here, right? So architects, specialist kind of a peoples. So how do you pick the tool? So it can be open source tool that you're looking for, or cloud source tools that you're looking for. So we know that open source tools they're often free, right? They are free to use, and they can be easily integrated with your MLOps tools. There is no doubt about it. But what happens, the only difficulty is with the open source tools, if you have a very few developers who have a good knowledge on that, integration could be a bit difficult, right? Then can be a platform versus a specific tool. Consider that you want to go for a commercial tools versus a cloud based tools. See, as I mentioned, cloud today offers everything that is needed for you for building this complete automation, right? SageMaker, Azure ML, or Vertex AI. But apart from that, apart from open source tools, also there are commercial players. You can pay a subscription, a monthly subscription. You can start using their platform. They have everything in a one single platform. So whether you're going for platform tools or specific tools, it's up to the organization requirements. Then comes the kind of a tool that you're going to pick for your organization. Does that product does that has model and production environment monitoring tools? We discussed about the importance of monitoring, right? Monitoring your ML models that is deployed in a production, and you need to monitor your complete infrastructure too. So making sure that your bugs are documented and addressed in the meantime, or maybe if you have any security and compliances concerns, has to be also addressed. So then comes the kind of a tool that you're going to pick. It can be AWS based tool or Azure or GCP or open source. Does that offers model templating and cataloging? So what do you mean by model templating and cataloging? So MLOps, all it works in the way of templating and cataloging it. So what do you mean by templating here? See, consider that here we are here to understand how to build an automation to deliver your AI to the production. Consider that you become a specialist in MLOps. Now you have built a project for a one client. Okay, so consider that you put all your efforts, you have built your pipelines for them. But tomorrow you're not going to work with the same project. You're going to work with the multiple projects. But the question is, are you going to reinvent a wheel again and again? Definitely not, right? That's where templates comes into the picture. So templates are something where we have everything. So, and just making some few changes in this particular template, you can use the same template to build an automation to any users, any clients that you do have basically. So that's where templating and cataloging comes into picture. So then comes, we are talking about an automation. See, we don't want to run, we don't want to build a models manually here. We don't want to run a code for data preparation, model training, evaluation and deployment. We want to automate everything. The kind of a tools that you're using, does it offers a complete automation? Can you do data preparation, training, deployment in an automated way? Then comes a pipeline management can be a more important thing. Consider that throughout this journey of building automation to deliver your AI to the production, there are a lot of stakeholders comes into the picture. So there might be a data engineers, for example, it can be data scientist, ML engineers, MLOps engineers. Some are senior folks comes into the picture also, right? So consider that now the models are getting trained. If model training has failed, we need to notify a data scientist. Here we go, your model has failed, you need to just go ahead and fix it, right? We need to throw an alert. Similarly for ML engineers or data engineers or also MLOps engineers. So the kind of a tools that you're looking for, does has a proper pipeline management? Can you able to trigger an automated triggers and updates if something goes wrong in your pipelines? So then comes finally collaboration and communication. So MLOps is all about collaboration and communication, right? So making sure that you have a proper communication within your team, and you document your commands, the questions. Or you integrate project management tools like Jira, right? Are you integrating communication tools like Slack, etc., right? So that's where we are. So saying that, let's try to understand what cloud offers, right? Because cloud is everything, because every organization today they are moving into the cloud, there is no doubt about it. So we are talking about MLOps on cloud. We are talking about three leading cloud platforms like AWS, Azure and GCP. Obviously, why cloud? Because especially in these cloud platforms, these three leading cloud platforms, AWS, Azure or maybe GCP, they occupy almost everything in this market, right? They are the major players in the market. So all you need to know about these three cloud platforms. Maybe as of right now we don't have to worry about other clouds like Alibaba, Oracle, etc., right? So in this particular program, in our MLOps specialization program, we get to cover all the three leading cloud platforms. We do cover anything related to DevOps or MLOps on AWS or Azure or GCP, but not limited to the cloud. What happens, folks? Today, if you're going to say that, few people say that I just want to learn AWS only. But if you only want to use AWS, but I have seen an organizations who use AWS, but still they use open source tools. They use Dockers. They might be using Kubernetes within AWS. What about that, right? So I have seen an organizations who run their DevOps pipelines on Azure, but they deploy their models on AWS. So today an organization uses a multi-cloud and open source tools. So this program is not limited to the cloud. We do also cover on open source tools like Dockers, Kubernetes, ML. Lot of tools. Let's take a look one by one. Okay, like what are the Git based tools that so that you need to be really aware about to become a specialist in MLOps? So starting from understanding the complete Git, how Git works, working with Git workflows, followed by that using code repositories like GitHub, Azure repos, or Bitbucket, or any third party repositories that we are talking about, right? Because who knows, your organization want to use GitHub or maybe Azure repos, right? Then comes understanding CI/CD, what we call it as continuous integration and continuous deployment. So CI/CD is traditionally part of what we call it as DevOps, folks. Okay, so as I mentioned, CI/CD is a practice that we use in traditional software industry to deliver new version of a software to production. If you see any software that keeps on getting updated, what's the story behind this? That's where the DevOps automation comes into the picture, right? So here in this particular program, so obviously to getting into MLOps, understanding CI/CD could be the base, right? So we'll be getting and understanding how the CI/CD practices works, right? So let's try to understand quickly, right? Simple example how the CI/CD pipelines work. So here is a simple workflow. So consider that there is a DevOps engineer who want to deliver a software application to the production. So here comes our developer. So our developer is making some changes to the code that is in PC, and he is pushing the code to a code repositories like GitHub or something like that. So basically he's committing the code. See what happens, we are talking about automation, there's no manual work. So automatically the trigger will triggered, and it will try to understand there is a new code has been updated. It will automatically pick the new version of a code that has been pushed by your developer, and it will start building your applications automatically. So consider that there's a Java developer who has built a Java application. Now we build it and we want to create a jar files, for example, a final package, right, that we want to go ahead and deploy it. So maybe here we have an ML model and we want to dockerize this ML model. I want to create a Docker image that I can able to use it to go ahead and deploy to the containers. So there are different strategies, right? So automatically your build process will get triggered. And we are talking about pipeline management. If a build process get failed or passed, we need to notify the particular DevOps engineer. So then comes, if your build process is done, then comes the next step in a workflow is running a test. So if you want to deploy a newer version of a software to the production, you need to test it, right? You need to test and you need to ensure that software is working perfectly, right? And again we notify if a software testing failed or passed, right? So followed by that, once all the test is done, finally we take an app and we go ahead and deploy that to the production wherever you want, right? A simple example would help you to understand even much better. So consider that there is an e-commerce website. We'll talk about amazon.com, amazon.in itself. Let's say you want to buy some new gifts, maybe clothes for a Diwali, right? So what do you do? We always go ahead and add to the cart and we go ahead and hit on a pay now button, right? Pay now button. So but consider that currently in a production your pay now button in a color of green, but we know that green is not so much attractive, red is so much attractive. A lot of customers are giving a feedback saying that we need a red color button. It's a simple example anyway, right? So based on considering a feedback, so your organization decided to change the color. So here comes a developer who is going ahead and changing the color of a button from green to red. But what's happening, the game is he is not going ahead and deploying this new feature, the color of a button that he has changed, to production. So initially, so we have let's say here is our DevOps setup. We have a DevOps setup in AWS. We call it as code pipelines. Initially, your developer, he will be pushing the code to a branch called dev. See, once the code is available, automatically the build process will trigger. That's what exactly we discussed previously, right? So automatically we started building your software. Once the software is built, we produce an artifact, a final package that we can take and go ahead and deploy it. So then comes in a deployment step, we deploy this app to a web server, right? So we go ahead and deploy your application to your dev environment, and you can able to see that the button color has been changed to green to red in a dev environment. As I mentioned, you can call it as dev or you can also call it as staging. So once the button has been deployed to the dev environment, here comes your internal team. So this app, the app that you deployed in a dev environment, it is only accessible for internal team. You come and do further testing here. You check the functionality of this button. You check it whether I can click it, whether the button is working or not. If you are satisfied, okay, if the button is working, so then you go ahead and deploy the same button to the production. That's how it's going to work. That's how the same things also going to work in MLOps pipelines also. This is how the simple workflow would look like. So here comes your developer. So or maybe a data scientist, maybe an MLOps engineer, right? Someone is making some changes to the script and he is pushing the script to a code repository. It can be any kind of a code repository. So the first step in a workflow, so will be started doing a feature engineering. So basically we started taking a data, start cleaning it, preparing it. Then the next step in a workflow, we take this clean data and we started building an ML model. And consider that we might produce the first version of a ML model. And here comes, you need to take a decision. The model is built, but whether it's a fit model, it's a good, can we go ahead and deploy to the production? This is where you evaluate a model. Maybe I calculate a metrics called MSC. My MSC score is 4.5. That's the metrics, that's a score. So then comes a condition step, as I mentioned. A condition step is basically where we have a benchmark that has to satisfy. My benchmark is this: if my MSC score that I calculated is less than or equal to 7, if it is true, this will go ahead and register your first version of a model to model registry. So mine is 4.5. Yes, 4.5 is less than or equal to 7. This is satisfied. It will go ahead and register the first version of a model to your model registry. If this condition didn't satisfy, it won't register your model to model registry. So then comes a further automation. So here I have a first version of a model in a model registry. Now I'm going to use my build tools. I want to take this model, I want to Dockerize it. So then I want to go ahead and deploy to the Docker platform. So Docker hosting, model hosting platform. Similarly, here I deploy the first version of a model to a dev environment. So where your internal data science, a senior data scientist comes and checks a model. If they are satisfied with that, then they approve. Then the same version of a model will go ahead and gets deployed to your production. So that's how the ML pipelines workflow is going to look like actually, right? Similarly, so we are talking about MLOps, but how it's going to be different in delivering your Gen AI models or large language models, right? There's no difference. MLOps and LLM ops, they have a common tools. LLM ops we call, like how does an LLM ops pipelines is going to look like? There's no much difference. So LLM ops that I'm talking about, it's just an extension of MLOps. Everything that you do have in LLM ops is MLOps. So consider that we do have a same step. The first step in a workflow, we take a data, we started doing data preparation and versioning, all those stuff would be same. So then we do something called supervised fine tuning, right? So because we are talking about large language models, we cannot build our own large language model from scratch, right? That's a different ball game, right? If you want to build your own large language model, what we call it as machine learning, we do deep learning. But here we are talking about taking a fine tuned models from Meta or AI 21 Labs, Hugging Face, or Stability AI. We want to take our own data, we want to fine tune it, right? And we produce our own version of a model. Consider that I produce the first version of a model. I use model artifacts, model registries to go ahead and register our ML model. Once I have a first version of a model, again I execute my pipeline, I build it and go ahead and deploy this large language model to the production. So it's MLOps. But what is different here is prompt engineering and responsible AI. So this is the two things would be different. So what is this prompt engineering? You know what is prompt is. Let's say if you go to chat GPT, what you do prompting, you go ahead and ask your question. That's what exactly we call it as a prompt. Then what is this responsible AI? You know that in the world of Gen AI that we are talking about, so the Gen AI could be misused by a user. So consider that today, by using generative AI tools, you can do a lot of offensive work. You can ask a generative AI to generate some offensive content. Like I can input some text, I want this to generate some offensive pictures, it can do, right? But this is where responsible AI comes into the picture. So when a user inputs is prompt, a responsible AI can able to filter it. So it could able to understand whether the user is trying to generate an offensive content or not. So if it's generating an offensive content, it throws an error saying we, we can't help you, right? So in the same way, the output that is also produced by your generative AI could be offensive, and this also to be filtered, and this could be also filtered by your responsible AI. So that's where responsible AI comes to the picture. Okay, saying that, let's talk about the different flavors of CI/CD tools that we will be covering throughout this particular program with hands-on. So we'll be covering DevOps, that is CI/CD, how to use DevOps for MLOps. It's not DevOps that you want to become a DevOps engineer again. How to use DevOps for MLOps. We do cover the complete DevOps tools on top of AWS, like understanding AWS code pipelines, code build, code deploy, etc. Understanding complete Azure DevOps suite with hands-on projects, understanding how to get started with Azure pipelines, repos, plans, boards, etc. Not limited to cloud-based tools, we do also cover open source tools like GitHub Actions and Jenkins too. And we do also cover DevOps tools on top of GCP, understanding cloud build, cloud run, cloud deploy, etc. Right? But we know that cloud is not just a only destination. We do have always a lot of open source tools. So what if your organization definitely want to use Dockers and Kubernetes? So we do cover Dockers completely from the scratch, Kubernetes completely from the scratch with a lot of hands-on. Not just Dockers and Kubernetes, we do cover how to create a production Kubernetes clusters on top of AWS. We call it as EKS. On top of Azure, we call it as AKS. On top of GCP, we call it as GKE, which we call it as Google Kubernetes Engine. And then comes the different flavors of open source tools that you will be learning in our program with a hands-on project. So starting from data versioning tools, we'll be covering DVC with hands-on understanding how to start versioning your data, putting it at the cloud, on premises, etc. Understanding Git large files, understanding feature stores, getting started with the open source feature stores like Feast. Then comes a workflow orchestration tools that we will be covering, starting from Kubeflow. Okay, there's a story behind a Qflow. Do you use Spotify? I use Spotify. Definitely, I love listening to music. And do you love how Spotify recommends a music? Spotify uses Qflow till date for their ML pipelines. Yes. So, and otherwise, we'll be also covering other orchestration tools like Apache Airflows and ML, Metaflow, etc. Are model registries like MLflow. Yes, we do get to cover from the scratch. Then comes infrastructure as a code, especially for MLOps engineers, someone who want to deploy the infrastructure. We also cover Terraform for MLOps. Then comes covering a pretty much famous tool that's outside in the market for model monitoring, Evidently AI. Not limited to open source tools, we need to understand the cloud-based MLOps services where you can become a really expert, a specialist. So we will be covering the major tools which makes a lot of sound in a job market, like SageMaker Studio in AWS, Azure ML Studio in Azure, Vertex AI in GCP. We will be using these tools to build level 4 architecture that I'm talking about in all these clouds. So followed by that, we'll be covering model monitoring SDKs on all the clouds like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Not limited to open source tools or cloud based tools, will be also touch upon the commercial tools. So commercial tools are not really important, but we are talking about to become a specialist in MLOps. We also go through this, and we'll be also providing a demos on this commercial tools also, like Isgazio, Volahai, Tecton, HubSworks, etc. Then comes end of a story, post deployment challenges. So once your model is deployed to the production, the story never ends. Then comes the post deployment challenges. The actual story starts after that. So we're talking about post deployment challenges, the challenges that is faced by your software engineers, the challenges that is faced by ML engineers, challenges that we do have in deploying your models to edge devices, etc. So that's how it's going to look like, right? Saying that, now we are going somewhere, right? Now you could able to understand what's really the MLOps is all about. So having that same interest in mind, why don't we get into the quick demo that we have built on top of AWS? Okay, obviously there are level 4 project. This is an example of a level 4 architecture project, but I cannot, in this 2 hours demo, I cannot provide you a demo of, or maybe the hands-on of all the clouds. That's where we have a program. So quickly, let's get into this demo session, demo right now. So please make sure you stay till end of this program. So right now we are in a number 2, understanding how to become a specialist. Still we have to discuss how you can able to make a very powerful career in AI industry into MLOps, right? That comes the next step. So now we'll be getting into the AWS demo. So here we go. So probably I believe you could able to see my screen. So officially, welcome to Amazon SageMaker Studio. So Amazon SageMaker Studio. So this is the best, and again a leading end-to-end ML tool that's outside in the market. So I have built a complete end-to-end ML pipelines on top of it. So let me just quickly show you, right? Towards left side navigation panel, I need to go to a deployments and the projects. And you can see I have a couple of projects. The project that is currently running, it's called AWS MLOps October. So this is a level 4 architecture project. It has integrated with everything: code repositories, CI/CD pipelines, model registries, model deployment tools, automated retraining. Okay, so you can able to see that the first option here that you do have a code repositories. So I'm using AWS code commit here, so which is inbuilt code commit repository in AWS, but you can use GitHub or you can use Bitbucket, etc. So there are 2 repositories. One repository I have a script for model building, in another repository I have a script for model deployment basically. If I go to pipelines, this is where you can see a one pipeline that I do have. If I open this pipeline, you'll see something called executions. So what is this execution? So pipeline execution it is. Let's say if you can see this is a table. In this table, you can see only one entry, right? So if this pipeline runs once, let's say I have one execution. If I have one execution, it produces one version of a model. If I have another execution in this table, it will produce second version. If I have another one, it will produce third version. So that's how it goes on. So automatically. So I have one execution so far. If I go inside this execution, this is how it looks like. This is what exactly we are talking about, an orchestration, a step-by-step approach. So what kind of a problem that we are solving here? So basically, I'm training an abalone model. So what do you mean by abalone? So if you are a seafood lover, I mean, if you'd like to, if you're a non-vegetarian, probably you might have know about abalones already. So abalone is some kind of a sea snail. There is a meat in it. You can able to eat it. So what the kind of a model that I have trained here within automation, it's all about predicting an age of an abalone, right? So depending on the age of an abalone, the price is decided in a market. That's how we are helping the farmers to harvest these abalones. Okay, so all I have the automation to build this ML model to predict an age of an abalone. You can use the same exact workflow to build any model, whether it is a classical machine learning models, deep learning models, or you want to fine tune your large language models also. So the first step in a workflow is pre-processing an abalone data. So I'm taking this data that is cleaned and prepared by a data engineer. So I will do this cleaning and preparing work here. So then once my data preparation is done, then comes my model training step. So what I do in my model training step, right? So this is where I take a data from my data pre-processing step. I started training an ML model. So this is where my first version of a model will get ready. But yes, it's a first version of a model, but still I don't know whether it's a good model. Can I go ahead and deploy this to the production or not? So this is where a model evaluation step comes into the picture. So what we do in a model evaluation, in a model evaluation step, so we take the model that is trained by my model training block, the first version of a model, right? So then consider that here we take the test data that we kept aside for testing your ML model, for example, right? Yeah. So then we started evaluating your ML model here. So here we calculate what we call it as this MSE score, basically, right? So mean square error. So the kind of a metrics my data scientist will be relying on in order to decide whether it's the best model, can we go ahead and deploy this to the production or not, right? So followed by that, finally we have what we call it as a condition step. I did discuss about condition step. This is where I take a decision. If my MSE score is lesser than or equal to 7, if that condition satisfies, my model will go ahead and register this model to model registry. So this is what exactly the model registry that you're taking a look. Can we go ahead and take a look, because my model is registered to a model registry? Can we take a look how this model looks like right now? Yeah, here we go. So let's go to models. Towards left side navigation panel, you can see something called models. This is called model registry in SageMaker. I have a lot of different model groups. This is the latest one that I do have. If I expand that, you can see this is where I have a model registry. I have a first version of a model that got registered here, but it says pending model approval. Let's go to the version 1. But I said I'm not going to deploy this model automatically to the production because I'm a senior data scientist, for example. I want to go ahead and cross verify whether it is a best model. Can I go ahead and deploy this ML model to model registry or not over here, right? Yeah. So here as a data scientist, I will go ahead and check, okay, the quality of a model. Okay, all good if I'm satisfied with that. So here you can see I have a deployment option. So here in a deployment option, I have an option to approve this ML model if I like, or if I don't like, I will go ahead and reject this ML model. Right now, I don't want to reject it. I will simply go ahead and hit approve. And here I will mention a further things. Okay, I would say all okay, all test okay. I might do further testing, all those stuff. And I will finally click on this save button in order to decide. So now I want to go ahead and deploy this ML model to staging environment. I'm not deploying my ML model to production so far. I'm actually deploying my ML model to a staging environment that I'm talking about. Okay, so now my model is getting deployed to a staging environment. But if I go to this endpoint section towards left side navigation panel, so this is where you can able to check the status of the model that is getting deployed to the staging environment. But so far it is not getting displayed. It will take some time. Okay, so let's wait for this model to be getting deployed, and then we will come back to the screen. Then you will see the model that is deployed, and I will also show you how do I invoke a model. I mean, how do I make a predictions from it, right? So in the meantime, let's go back to our slides. Okay, here we go. So obviously right now we are talking about a demo, and let's get into the most awaiting part in this entire program, the career opportunities in MLOps. So there's no doubt about it. We are here to make the very powerful, the best powerful career outside in the market. That means getting into the AI world. And so what kind of a position that works for you? You can, if you're really good at data science, you can become a data scientist, right? So if you're really good at Python programming, right, statistics and probability. Or if you're not coming from data science background, do I need to be a data scientist to become an MLOps engineer? Definitely not. So here we go. So you can be a data scientist. Yes, you are going to be part of MLOps. You need MLOps. Or you are a data engineer or a data analyst. Can you become MLOps engineer? Yes. You are a research or applied scientist. You might be an ML engineer, DevOps engineer. You're an aspiring MLOps professional, or you want to learn how to deploy an ML models to production, or someone who are learning Docker and Kubernetes, AWS or Azure or GCP or other open source tools. You can become an MLOps engineer. Or someone, an individual who is interested in a data and AI. You might be a software tester. You might be coming from a completely non-technical background. Can you become an MLOps engineer? Yes, we do have a testimonial where people could able to successfully transform into MLOps engineering here. So you might be a cloud architect. Here we go. You have a good opportunity here, right? You can be a software developer, right? So yeah, you can become an MLOps engineer. So let's talk about some of the numbers here, the income potential in MLOps. So consider that an average salary for someone who is called data scientist in India, like he gets in around 25 lakhs per annum. I'm talking about an according to MNC standards. Okay, so here I want to talk some actual facts, right? So this is a data that we got from a sixfigure.com, right? You know what is six figure? Everyone want to get more than six-figure salary probably. So here we are talking about, after verifying 24 profiles in India. So this is a data from March 12, 2024. An average salary for someone who has a 2 to 3 years of experience in IT, he can able to focus on getting at least 26.6 lakhs is the average salary. This is the actual facts. You can also go ahead and cross verify. So this is the average salary that you can able to expect if you have an MLOps skill sets on your resume. I'm talking about, you can apply for data science, you can apply for ML engineer, you can apply for MLOps engineer. This could be your average salary, for example. So we do have a testimonial. We do have peoples who are applying for lead positions in MLOps who is getting more than 40 lakhs per annum, right? So you might be lying in a different slab. So maybe 33% of people who might be lying in a 10 to 20 lakhs, 42% of people who might be lying between 20 to 30, at remaining 25 people might be lying, lying between 30 to 40 lakhs slab. I'm talking about by applying for various different positions, being part of MLOps. Let's say if I'm only talking about MLOps, you can apply for what we call it as MLOps engineering, or you can apply for MLOps lead / architect / specialist, etc. Or you can apply for ML engineering. That can be another option. Okay, so we'll talk more about it because I want to talk personally with everyone, I mean in this call itself, to understand so what's your experience, what kind of a position that you can apply for MLOps basically, right? So obviously the vacancies for ML jobs outside in the market, there's no doubt about it, it's skyrocketing till today, right? So as I mentioned, in some form every organization want to implement AI. But what makes an AI to the production? That's where the automation comes into the picture. But if we talk about an actual fact says, today every data scientist that's outside the market, they are really good at building models, but they have no idea about automation. They have no idea how to go ahead and deploy this model to the production, building a complete automation and delivering a model to the production. And again, it's not something that will be done only by a data scientist. So data scientist, someone who will be responsible for building a models. MLOps engineers are someone who is responsible for building an automation, the complete pipelines, right? So that's where you can be part of. Saying that, let's try to understand the speed of transformation that is just happening across the globe, right? So this is a simple example that I would like to always throw, right? Just imagine we are talking about the revolutionization of a drones today. This drones just in 10 years, which has completely replaced one specific industry. A choppers and a cameraman which is carrying a camera for shooting a movie, the report, news report, anything. Just in 10 years, I'm talking about this transformation happened. But in AI, we don't have such kind of a 10 years. I'm talking about, so we are already in the era of AI. There's no doubt about it. So AI is no more, we can say it's a future. Yes, it's a AI as a AI is going to different transformations in a future, but we are already in an AI, right? The question is, how are you going to position yourself into the AI industry, right? So if you're good at data science, on top of it, you need an MLOps. Or you are obviously, maybe not everyone might be focusing on becoming a data scientist itself. So maybe you are a software professional, software engineer, software tester, DevOps engineer. How do you make your career into AI? MLOps engineering could be the one option. ML engineering can be another option, right? So this is where our program comes into the picture, the MLOps specialization course. So when we are starting, so MLOps specialization program, let's talk about this program and curriculum. Definitely, you're going to love it. So we have bought something really awesome in this world, obviously. So let's get started. The MLOps specialization program where you can become a specialist. So we are getting started with our MLOps specialization program, the next batch, around November 19th. So this program is only on weekends. So we are starting around November 19th, every Saturday and Sunday, starting from let's say 7 p.m. IST to 11 p.m. IST, evening hours every Saturday and Sunday. So if you're joining from EST time zone, it will be 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. CET time zone 2:30 to 6:30 p.m. Let's talk about the structure of a program. Okay, so let me tell you why people's really love our program. Okay, so because of an hands-on, simple. So consider that we are talking about 11 weekends program. So this program is for 11 weekends. Otherwise, I would say 2.5 to 3 months program it is, right? Solid. So the program structure would work like this. Every weekend, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., every Saturday and Sunday, we'll be having a live sessions. That is 4 hours, right? 4 hours Saturday and 4 hours Sunday. That's how it's going to work. And every Monday, you'll be receiving an access to the recordings. And every weekdays, we have something called debugging sessions. But these debugging sessions are simply optional to attend. So consider that we are talking about MLOps program. So where you're going to build the level 4 architecture projects, right? So multiple things can go wrong. You might be having some errors, some bugs. You couldn't resolve it during a live session. So you can join the debugging sessions, which is going to happen on a weekdays. So that's how it's going to work, right? So this could be the structure of a program. So we are talking about, let's say, a 2.5 months to 3 months program, or it's a 11 weekends program that I'm talking about. So putting together, we are solidly looking for around 90 hours program. So consider that in this 90 hours program, almost 85% of the time that you will be busy building projects. See, let's try to understand some numbers here. So what kind of a peoples who take our program, right? So we do have candidates minimum. So we do have a minimum, let's say maximum, right? So we do have a minimum a 2 to 3 years of experience candidates, and we do have a maximum 18 to 20 years of experience candidates. They take this particular program. Simple. So this defines what is the level of expertise that we do cover in this particular program. So MLOps specialization program, it's not a program where you just get a basic idea. It's a program for you to become a specialist. That's why it's called MLOps specialization. So we do have a people's who is more than 15 years of experience candidates. They join this program. So what is there in this program for the 15 years guy? Simple. They are looking for a lead positions in MLOps, someone who want to apply for architect kind of a positions. That's what exactly such kind of an expertise, the projects that we will be building in this particular program. So talking about this particular program, as I mentioned, the key features would be it's a 90 hours program. There are more than 50 real-time projects, 50 plus live hands-on projects, 28 real-time projects. From this 28 real-time projects, 19 to 20 projects that we will be building in a live session itself. How? The projects that I'm building on my screen parallelly will be replicating on your screen. That's how it's going to work. Okay. So, and the most USP of this particular program, so we do cover multi-cloud and open source tool and hands-on on every cloud and every open source tool. You can check the curriculum. We'll go to this awesome curriculum in the next few minutes. Okay. So saying that, let's talk about the awesome uh, curriculum and the pricing that we have put it in. Okay, so can we have a quick discussion on the pricing that we have put it in? So here we go. So consider that people who come for our program, they don't just come for the skill development only. Basically, we do have two different categories of peoples. So few candidates, the few participants, they just come here for the skill development, and few candidates, they need a support post completion of this particular program. So basically, there are two different phases in our program: phase 1 and phase 2. The question is whether you're going to be part of phase 1 or phase 2 is up to you, up to your requirements. So consider that we have divided the entire pricing structure of this particular program into three different types. We call it as basic plan, advanced plan, and advanced plus. Let's talk about the pricing structure, and I will go through each and every pricing structure and what we offer in that. So it's going to be really awesome. So we have three different pricing structure. We call it as advanced plus, which is a topmost plan that we do have, which is a premium one. Then we call it as advanced plan. Then we call it as a basic plan. Okay, here we go. We do have three different pricing structures. Why? You could have a question, right? So as I mentioned, consider that you are only looking for a skill development only. So then you can go for a basic plan that we do have. So basic plan is especially designed just for a skill development. That means you can able to attend the live sessions, you can able to get access to the recordings, and you can able to attend what we call it as this debugging sessions, right? So this basic plan is also part of advanced and advanced plus. All these plans inclusive of live sessions and accessing recordings and debugging sessions. Okay, so whether you take basic or advanced plus, there is no difference in what you're learning from this program. Every peoples, they learn the same exact curriculum whatever the plan you have, but the kind of a features what you get is going to be different. So consider that if you want to just be part of phase 1, you're looking only for skill development, go for basic plan. Okay, let's listen to what we have in advanced or advanced plus. Okay, so that's where the most interesting part comes into picture. So consider that almost every participant who take our program is a working professional, right? See, consider that we guys are busy and we make our time, we want to make our career to go to the next level, and we make our time and we attend this program. And see what happens, sometimes people miss few live sessions, right? So again, everyone, we want to take a live sessions, right? Not the prerecorded one. So this is where we provide a feature called bonus reattendance opportunity. So what is this bonus reattendance opportunity? By signing up once, you can able to take our program twice. Simple. So consider that you're joining our November batch. Even after you completing our November batch, you will be given another opportunity to take our January batch also. So consider that maybe in some scenarios you might have missed few live sessions in a November batch. You can take our January batch again for free and write next batch after November batch. So in a scenario, you don't miss anything from this program, right? If you lost something here, you can again have another chance to retake it. So that's called bonus reattendance opportunity. Another option, another advantage that you do have in a bonus reattendance opportunity, each and every batch there is a new curriculum update, obviously. So if you go ahead and compare our curriculum of our previous batch and current batch, so the curriculum has been changed. So let's say if there is a new curriculum has been updated in the next batch, you get an opportunity to learn that. And then comes a resume preparation and 6 months of technical job support. The most interesting, and this is where we are really good at. Let me just discuss what is this resume preparation and 6 months of technical job support. See, consider that this is where phase 2 comes into the picture. So I mean, advanced or advanced plus plan. See, most of the peoples, they want to upskill and they want to go for a better job outside. They want a high paying job, right? So this is where we help them. So consider that first step, what we do is resume preparation. So what we do in a resume preparation, we sit for a discussion, we try to understand what's your role. You might be a DevOps engineer, you might be a cloud architect, you might be a software tester. So what have you done previously and how does your resume is going to look like? Let's say you're applying for MLOps engineering, ML engineering. So we sit and help you bias your resumes. Okay. And step number 2, we also help you in optimizing let's say your job portals, for example, right? So it can be a LinkedIn, right? Or it can be Naukri or any job portal that we do have. We make sure we put a right keywords on top of this job portal, so in order to make sure that you're getting some good quality calls from good organizations that's outside, right? So then the third step, what we call it as JD decoding session. So this is where we are really good at. See, most of the participants, the first thing, they will be having an issue in getting an interview calls, right? You might be having a good resume, but still you are not getting, let's say, the interview call. We would like to fix that in a first two steps. And then comes, you have an interview, you're getting some good calls, but how are you going to clear that technical round of interview? This is where we play very important role. So what is this JD decoding session is nothing but, consider that you guys have an interview after 3 days from now, right? So before you going ahead and sitting for a technical round of a discussion with an actual interview, I will be asking you to bring this particular JD, and we will sit for a discussion with that JD. We'll go through this JD line by line. We understand what kind of a tool they are looking forward, what kind of a questions you're going to expect, and maybe you have mentioned some of the projects that we have built it during a program. How are you going to deliver a story about that, right? So this is where we provide more insights, and this is already working for our participants. I would recommend you to check the testimonials, so because our participants does talks for us. Saying that, so this can be the one way how you can able to use the technical job support. In another way how you can able to use this technical job support, let's say you're already working, so consider that you need some consulting, you need some documentation, you need some architectures, you have some bugs and questions, you need our help to debug that, right? You can still use our technical job support. So that's how our technical job support works. And if you go to advanced plus plan, here comes the awesome opportunity. So consider that in advanced plus plan, instead of you getting a 6 month support, you get 1 year support over there. And there's an additional feature called instant access to recordings. So you know that solidly we have around 20 to 23 days still for our live session. Even after we starting our live session, it takes around 3 months to complete a program, solidly around 3.5 months. So you don't need to wait till 3 months to complete this particular program. You can get started in next 24 hours. So candidates who sign up for advanced plus plan, they get instant access to our previous batch recordings with the solid support from us. You can go through these recordings anytime that you want. Parallelly, you can start attending the live sessions from November 9th. So that's how it's going to work. You get an access to the recordings immediately. So the pricing is something like this. Our basic plan is just starting from 40,999, and our advanced plan is just a 3,000 rupees more than basic plan. And if you go to the topmost plan, what we call it as advanced plus, it comes with 49,999. If you want to know the same pricing in USD, this is how it looks like. An advanced plus plan would be costing around $749, and advanced plan would be costing around $649, and basic plan would be costing around $599. That's awesome. But we do have another surprise. I mentioned three takeaways, but there is a fourth takeaway, which is a quick surprise for the peoples who have stay till end of this particular program. They used to get to know the offers that we do have actually. But yes, these offers are till next Monday. What we call it as a free upgradation offer. But this is our second demo session that we're conducting, because we had our first demo last Wednesday. Probably you might have know that, but you might have opted for Saturday's demo session. So we have something called a free upgradation offer, but unfortunately we do have just 3 seats available on that out of 10 seats. Let's see, the 3 lucky peoples, they might get this Dasra offers that we are running. It's called free upgradation offer. So what is this free upgradation offer? Is nothing but, it's going to be really exciting. So consider that most of the folks, you might be interested in going for a topmost plan like advanced plus or advanced plan, right? I obviously, I want to protect myself, right? Because you don't want to miss anything from this program. You get 2 chances and 6 months of technical job support. So why not, obviously, right? Advanced or advanced plus plan. So consider that if you are interested in advanced plan, right, a middle one for example, don't register for advanced plan. All you need to do, go ahead and register for a basic plan, which is costing just 40,999, and we will be upgrading you to advanced plan for free. You go ahead and get basic, you can get advanced, you can save around 3,000 rupees in the registration purposes. And we do have a solid EMIs on all the plans, whether you want to go for a basic or advanced. So we do have EMIs starting for a basic plan from 1,700. It gets a bit vary on the different kind of a credit cards that you do use. And also mention, as of right now, for this free upgradation, we do have just 3 seats left. Okay. Same way, if you're looking for the topmost plan, which we call it as advanced plus, right? You just simply go ahead and register for advanced plan, and we will be upgrading to advanced plus. You can just get started in next 24 hours. So it's just, you will be saving around 6,000 rupees in a registration amount. Okay. So that's how it's going to work. So saying that, how do you make a solid decision, right? So it's this is the best way to do that. Go ahead and listen to our participants testimonials, right? So here we do have a range of different testimonials. We do have a candidate who is coming from a completely non-technical background. She could able to transform herself into MLOps engineering. Her name is Dipali. I would recommend you folks to go ahead and listen to her testimonial, because uh, I'm really proud of Dipali, because I have a senior data scientist who could able to really take this program, DevOps engineers who could able to take this program, and they can able to easily transform, right? We do have a lead. I mean, we do have a people's who is coming from a data science background, DevOps background, and now they are working as an MLOps lead with a 40 lakhs per annum. Okay, that's good. But the one proudest thing that I would say, people, students like Dipali, right? So she's actually a mechanical engineer. Okay, she's not coming from a fancy IT backgrounds like us. So she is a mechanical engineer. She did work as a mechanical engineer, digital marketing engineer. She's no more related to IT, but she has a dream of getting into data science, right? So she started upskilling herself into data science, but unfortunately she didn't get an actual data science job. But she's working in a startup at that particular time, so where she is taking care of deployment of her models. That's the time where she did take our MLOps specialization course, and after taking this particular program in 2 to 3 months, she could able to land in MLOps engineering. Obviously it took 2 to 3 months for her, because she's coming from a completely non-technical background, and all she did, she utilized the complete support from us, and we tried to made it happen. So probably we might have sat for more than 10 JD decoding sessions with her, and providing further inputs in that, right? So we do have other testimonials. Go ahead and take a look of a testimonials of a Harsha, or maybe some other, or maybe Rahul. So peoples are coming from DevOps or maybe data science background, how they could able to make it happen, right? So for example, Harsha, he got 3 different offers, and he could able to pick one offer from that, right? So yeah, so we are talking about at least one offer, but peoples could able to get a more than one offer. So what if you have a chance to pick more than one here, the best one, right? So please go ahead and take a look of our testimonials. And why do you think Cyton Technologies, we are the best people to teach it? So we are the best outside in the market, because we have the best curriculum outside in the market. And so our participants does talks for us. And you can also go ahead and check more about the Cyton Technologies. We are into 2 different phases. One is a retail training, another one is a corporate training. We do also train the corporates that's outside in the market. We work with banks like Royal Bank of Scotland, Mini Labs in Bangalore, etc. We've been supported by Department of Science and Technology. We've been incubated in PSG STEP and other few international representations. Go ahead and check, and go ahead and check the testimonial I'm going to share. Will get you the more details. Okay, so I, I don't want to make you wait. Let's quickly go ahead and check the curriculum that we do have, because what you're going to love is the curriculum that we have put it in. So in a few minutes I'm going to share this curriculum, and in a few minutes I will be also opening a mic for Q&A. You can also talk to me. So let me just go to the curriculum quickly. So totally we do have 15 modules, 15 modules. So where we will be covering MLOps. So 1 5. The 15th module is a new addition. So first 14 modules are basically, let's say it's a completely covered in a live session. 15th module that we added for this batch, that will be a self-paced. We will talk about that. Let's talk about our module number 1, right? So module number 1 is all about introductions of MLOps. We'll be diving deep into MLOps, understanding the different flavors of tools, understanding the challenges, again the high level view, and then comes understanding the different operations. We are talking about MLOps, right? But how DevOps, AI ops, or model ops, large language model operations, FM ops, GitOps works, right? How it is related to MLOps. Then comes the most interesting part. We talk about the case studies. We will take an actual case studies of 4 different organizations. We'll talk about their story of how they have implemented automation. Okay, then comes in a module number 2. This is where we'll be diving deep into the ML and ML ops stages. So this is where we're going to talk about different kind of versionings that we do. We did talk about code versioning, we did talk about data versioning, we did talk about model versioning. So your features will be also version, the containers that we will be working will be also version. We'll be talking about that. So then comes testing and ML ops, CI/CD, reproducibility, and other things. Then comes MLOps architectures. So MLOps architectures, there are two things here: MLOps architectures on open source tools, MLOps architectures on a cloud based tools. We'll be diving into all those open source tools that we mentioned here, like Kubeflow, Apache Airflow, MLflow, Kedro, ZenML, CML, etc., and exploring how you can able to build a large scale production architectures in AWS or Azure GCP. I'm talking about the level 4 architecture projects, folks, right? So then comes module number 3 is Git, understanding Git essentials for MLOps practices. I'm not talking about DevOps practices. You might be having understanding of Git, but how you can able to use Git for MLOps, understanding Git and getting started with Git from the scratch, the hands-on projects. Then comes module number 4. This is where we'll be diving into CI/CD strategies on all the cloud-based tools, including open source tools like GitHub Actions. So we'll be understanding how DevOps tools works on a cloud, how to adapt those DevOps tools for MLOps, and we'll be building at least one project in every cloud platform. So one in AWS, covering all the tools in GCP DevOps, and covering one project on top of it. And again, going to Azure, covering all the Azure based DevOps tools, talking about how you can able to use infrastructure as a code concept in Azure to deploy the infrastructure, and one project will be built on top of it. And open source tools like GitHub Actions, understanding how to use GitHub Actions, and building an end-to-end project on top of it. Then comes module number 5. This is where we covered Dockers and Kubernetes. As I mentioned, Dockers and Kubernetes will be covered from the scratch. We'll be getting started with Docker Foundation, talking about all the components of Dockers, like Docker network type, volumes, Docker Compass, Docker Swarm, etc. And there are more than one project that we build in Dockers, understanding how to Dockerize a simple software, it can be, understanding how to Dockerize an ML model and deploying it. And then comes a complete end-to-end ML model deployment with Docker Compass, for example. Then comes understanding Kubernetes from scratch, understanding the complete Kubernetes components, understanding worker nodes, control planes, understanding Kubernetes resources, and getting started with a complete Kubernetes project, deploying a complete ML model and Kubernetes clusters. So then comes module number 6 is again Kubernetes. We're going much higher and advanced level. So Kubernetes deployment strategies, this is where we'll be talking about any organization, what kind of a strategies they form in order to deploy their applications on top of Kubernetes. We'll talk about all the strategies. And then comes, we will be talking about how to create a production grade cluster in cloud. Let's say when it comes to AWS, we have EKS, Azure as AKS, or Google as GKE. We'll talk about all those cloud platforms, and we'll be picking one cloud in a live sessions. We'll be building a one project with that. Then comes module number 7, high level overview of model management tools. So this is where again we'll be getting into data versioning, code versioning, experiment tracking tools, and the most awaited tool that we will be discussing here, MLflow. It's pretty much famous. MLflow is something that you must have on your resume. And there are two projects. The first project, understanding how to deploy an MLflow stack. Then comes using that stack, building, training, and deploying your ML model to the production. Then comes understanding data versioning tools like DVC, understanding how to version any kind of a data. You want to store it on a cloud premises anywhere, and project will be built on top of it. Then comes module number 8 is feature stores. This is where we'll be getting into understanding feature stores, and we'll be using open source feature stores like Feast, and we'll be building a custom built feature store project on top of it. Then comes module number 9, the most important module. I will say it's a deep dive into MLOps cloud services. Everything is advanced. So deep dive into MLOps cloud services. So we will be covering AWS, Azure, GCP. This is where I'm talking about this level 4 projects will be built. We'll be covering Amazon SageMaker from scratch, and we'll be using Amazon SageMaker pipelines, otherwise what we call it as Amazon SageMaker Studio, for building a complete end-to-end ML pipelines, which is part of level 4 architecture. So followed by that, we'll be covering Vertex AI GCP. Yes, and understanding how to work with Vertex AI and building a complete end-to-end MLOps pipeline using Vertex AI. Followed by that, then comes Azure MLOps, understanding complete Azure Machine Learning Studio and building a complete end-to-end MLOps pipeline. And we'll be using a latest version of architecture, so version 2 architecture projects. Then comes Kubeflow. We did refer to Kubeflow a couple of times in our demo. So Kubeflow is a popular open source framework. We'll be getting through Kubeflow end to end, understanding how to deploy a complete Kubeflow stack and building end to end ML pipelines on top of it. Then comes module number 11 as a new addition. So for MLOps for LLMs, using MLOps for LLMs and for generative AI, we'll be going through the complete high level overview or LLM system design, a high level view of LLM driven applications, and we'll be also providing a demo on top of module number 11. So here we voluntarily, we don't ask you to do hands on, because I'm talking about deploying a large language model will cost you a lot of money, right? So yeah, it's up to you. If you want to do an hands-on, yes, you have an option. So then comes module number 12, understanding model monitoring tools. We'll be covering model monitoring SDKs on all the clouds, and we'll be picking one cloud and we'll be building an end-to-end project for monitoring an ML model that we have put it in a production. Then comes module number 13. As I mentioned, it's not just a cloud or open source. We also want to give you a taste of commercial tools that's outside. Commercial tools are not so much important that you don't see it on resume. I mean, JDs much, but it's good to understand. And we'll be also going to commercial tools, and we'll be picking one of a tool, and we'll be also giving it a demo for that. Followed by that, module number 14 is the last module for a hands-on live sessions, post-deployment challenges. See what happens after you deploying your ML model to the production. The challenges related to software engineering, ML engineering. So this is where we'll be getting into the pretty much open source tool, evidently AI, a universal tool for monitoring everything in your AI world, model monitoring, data monitoring. Then comes module number 15, a new addition for this particular batch. It's a self-paced. So what is this self-paced? It's a pre-recorded sessions here. So I mean, everything we can split this entire program into must know and may know. All the tools that comes in a module number 15 is may know, because everything that you have learned on the top will be also implementing here. So here we'll be covering open source tools like Jenkins, and one project will be, I mean, two projects will be built on Jenkins, and again you'll be using all the tools that you learned on top of it. Let's say here we'll be using Jenkins as a CI/CD pipeline, but you'll be using Dockers, ML flow, containers along with that to build this end-to-end ML project. So we'll be also covering Apache Airflow, which can be an alternative for Kubeflow. Kubeflow, we cover it in a module number 10. And again, two projects will be built on top of Apache Airflow. Then comes, we'll be also covering Google Kubernetes engine, because we cover as part of module number 6, we cover AWS AKS. So here you can also learn how to create a cluster in GKE or Azure Kubernetes services to getting started with that. So then we also cover Terraform for the infrastructure as a code. How do you deploy infrastructure on any cloud, for example? Then comes a final topic, Argo Workflow. Argo Workflow is again another alternative for Kubeflow, what we have covered in module number 10. So you can also go through Argo Workflow here. So this is the best, a solid curriculum. There's no doubt about it. That's available outside in the market. So these are the skills that you will be learning that you can put it on your resumes. And these are the tools that we will be learning throughout this particular program. In a same PDF, you can get the entire story. You can able to get the pricing structure in both in INR and USD. And if you further scroll down here, you can able to solidly access all the testimonial that I'm asking for you to take a look. Please take a look, and you can able to make a decision quickly, because we don't have much seats, because we are looking for solidly 20 people's in a registration. The registrations are being already started 3 weeks ago. So as of right now, for this free upgradation offer, we do have just 3 seats left. So please make sure you take an action, because time kills people's, because if you wait, the market is going to be crowded. There's no doubt about it, because every organization today, they're looking for productionizing their AI. They need a solid person, someone who can able to build an automation, right? So quick to go to market, and you can able to get the bigger piece of a cake. Or if you go to a market is later, you're going to get a very small piece of a cake, right? Whether you need a bigger piece of a cake, a smaller piece of a cake, it's about how you take your action sooner. Okay, solidly. And you can also further go through, you can get not just the testimonials, how people shared ourselves in a social media. So you can also contact them. I mean, it's up to you, like if they contact you, I mean, if they can able to respond to you, can able to also contact them. Yep. So this is what the entire program is all about. So obviously our demo is in progress. So what I will do, first I will share you the links where you can able to download this PDF that I have mentioned so far. So you can also go ahead and download that. So here we go. I'm going to share a link in your chat window, folks. The first link is actually for a registration. By a first link that I'm going to share it in a chat window, you can able to register for this particular program. So please make sure you go ahead and take a quick action before we sold out of the seats for this offers especially, right? So I'm going to share a links in a chat window, and I have also shared you my contact number. Please feel free to reach out to me, so where we can able to have a more discussion and try to understand your needs. And let me just give you a good, proper roadmap to getting into MLOps. Okay, the first link that I shared in a chat window is for registration. If you go to that particular registration link, you'll be redirected to a landing page on our website. You can go through this program in detail again. We have this, all the modules, curriculum is listed here. You can also download the same PDF from here, the tools, the demo session that we have done on last Wednesday. And if you further scroll down, you can check all the testimonials here. And if you go ahead and you can click register now, you can just go ahead and put your details here. So for example, yeah, I'm going to put my email. Yep. So let me just quickly put my phone number. Let me go to the next step. Here we go. So here you can go ahead and you can able to pick your favorite plan. As I mentioned, we have an offer by just by registering for basic plan, you get advanced, right? Or just by registering for advanced, you can get advanced plus. So you can go ahead and get it accordingly. And if you're an international participant, you need a pricing in USD, you have an option here. And you can able to pick your favorite plan. And we do have an EMI options, as I mentioned. So let's say you can just click proceed by providing your details. And we are using Razorpay. We are the trusted partners from Razorpay, Citon Technologies. You can use all the different payment options that we do have. We have an EMI options on all the major credit cards. Please go ahead and check it and sign up right before we sold out. Okay. Saying that, I would like to quickly check my deployment of a model. Then I will open a session for a Q&A. You can able to unmute your mic and we'll have a solid conversation. Okay. Yep. So here we go. I'm in a SageMaker console. I'm going to quickly refresh my console. Okay. I'm in an endpoint section. So what is this endpoint? This is the section where you can able to find the models that got deployed. So here, so far the model got deployed to the staging environment. You can able to check the name. It says AWS MLOps October staging. So now the model got deployed, as simple as that. But how do I deploy a model to production? That's the next step I'm going to show you after having some Q&A, after answering some of your questions. So here, the model is already deployed. If I go to this model section, I can see the model is deployed and it is routing an 100% traffic to it. And there is a test inference option. So I want to go ahead and make a predictions. I want to check the age of an abalone. So I can go to the test inference option. I can select the proper data type. Here I can able to input my data. But when it comes to the real-time application, your developer will be creating a web application for that. But creating a web application comes in out of a scope for an MLOps engineers. They don't build a web apps, right? So here, let's go ahead and make a quick prediction. So here I have a sample data set that I'm going to use it to make a invocation. So this is my sample data set that I'm passing. This has a features of an abalone data set. All it's going to do is going to give me a predictions over here. Okay, it's going to just give me the age of an abalone. Let me just send the request, and you're going to and here we go. It didn't take much longer, and this is the output result that you got from your model. And you can able to see this body. The body says 10.50. This is the age of an abalone. The kind of a use case that we're working on, it's a regression use case, and all we want to predict an age of an abalone here, right? So yes, in the same fashion, you can deploy any kind of a model. It can be regression, classification, deep learning models like large language models, Gen AI models will do work. Okay. So saying that, let's go to a Q&A right now. So go ahead and ask your questions in a chat window. Or you can also unmute your mic. Now I'm going to unmute you. So you can also go ahead and talk to me directly. So now you should able to unmute your mic. Please go ahead and unmute, and you can go ahead and ask your questions. In the meantime, you guys ask me a question. I'm going to answer some of the questions in a chat window. Please go ahead, unmute your mic, and let's have a conversation. And please make sure you go ahead and get your tickets as soon as possible, because we do have, if in case of this offers, we do have just 3 seats for this offer, right? Yep. So let me know if you have any questions right now. Here we go. Let me just go to the poster. Yep. Okay, let me just check if you guys going to ask any questions in the chat window. I'm going to answer one by one. Okay, so we have a question in the chat window. Someone is asking, let me just read out the name here. Sufin, sorry if I'm pronouncing your names wrong. Snufnisa, sorry. So we'll be providing a cloud access. Okay, the way it works, let's say participants, they will be creating their own cloud. I mean, it can be AWS or Azure or GCP. They will be providing, I mean, so all these cloud platforms like it can be AWS, Azure, GCP, they will be providing a free trial limits. So consider that when it comes to, let's say, AWS, they provide 1 year free trial, and Azure and GCP, they provide the credits for us to explore the cloud platform. This free trial limits would be more than enough for us to explore in this particular training program. And even after completing a training program, this could be fair enough for you to, let's say, if you want to build and practice by your own, right? Yep. So Viber was asking, can we get the PDF? I mean, I believe Viber, you're referring to the, let's say, the curriculum. I have shared the link already in a chat window. Please do take a look. I'm going to also share the links once again. So the first link is for the registration, okay? And if you click on the second link that I shared, you can able to download the curriculum. And I've also shared the third link, where, as I promised, where you can able to download this free ebooks. Yeah, of MLOps related ebooks. Okay, so then comes okay, we have Aptari is asking a question. Do we have an EMI options? I believe I have explained. Yes, we do have an EMI options. All our EMI options starting from minimum of 3 months to maximum of 24 months EMIs that you can able to climb up there. So let me just go to the registration page once again. Just give me a sec. Yeah, here we go. So yeah, so you can able to opt for the EMI options. Yeah. Yeah. So on a major all credit cards that we do have, we have an EMI options. So you can able to opt for any major credit cards we do have. So yes, we do have a minimum of 3 months till maximum of 24 months EMIs that you can able to opt for. Yep. So Dora Babu is asking a question. So what about labs? So as I mentioned in this particular program, so let's say there are more than there are around 28 projects that we will be building. Out of 28, let's say 19 to 20 projects that we will be building in the live sessions. So way it works, all the live projects that I will be building on my screen, parallelly you will be building it on your screen, Babu. So that's how it's going to work, right? Yeah, it's a screen to screen, so how it's going to work. Okay, so let me just go ahead and answer the next question. Okay, that's good. So, will I will teach any AI algorithms, all those stuff? That's a good question. So, this is not a data science program. So, I would like to also clarify that. So, this is a purely an MLOps program. So, we don't teach a data science here. So, what are you talking about? Will I teach model evaluation for large language models that you're talking about, which comes under a data science basically. So, how you fine tune your large language model, how you evaluate your large language model, which will be part of how the data science work, especially it's part of deep learning, right? So this is a purely an MLOps program. So here we don't teach data science, or we don't teach a Python programming for getting started. Okay. So, but I would like to also mention another thing. The people's, I just forget to mention that. So, I mean, people who sign up with this offers, they can also get some free resources from us. What is this free resources are nothing but, so usually people's coming from a bit of a non-technical background, so they will be having some basics, they might be lagging some basics with the programming. So obviously, do I need a programming expertise for this particular program? So you might be having a question, right? So consider that if you are a data scientist, right, if you going to ask me a question, do I need to have a Python programming expertise? Definitely, as a data scientist you need to have. But consider that you're going to say that I'm a DevOps engineer, I'm going to apply for MLOps engineering job roles. I'm a software engineer, I'm going to apply for MLOps engineering job role. Let's say focusing on MLOps engineering, right? So do I need to have a Python expertise? Definitely not. But I would definitely not going to say with zero programming knowledge you can become MLOps engineer. Definitely not, because you need to have some kind of a basics, let's say in Python. But definitely here we don't teach you how to become expert in Python. But we, as a Cyton Technologies, we are into data science and Python, but I don't ask you to, okay, just go ahead and sign up for a data science program or Python. So the people who sign up with this offers, they can also get a free resources from us. These free resources are inclusive of Python tutorials where you can able to go through and get started with a Python, and there are some practice materials that you can able to use. If you could able to practice this practice materials, even you can able to become an expert in Python. Along with that, if you are interested, you can also explore a data science basics tutorials also. But this free resources are completely out of a scope for this particular program. Okay, so let me know if you have the next question. So please feel free to unmute your mic. Okay, let's have a conversation. Not a problem. So use your mic. I believe I have unmuted your mic. You can also talk to me. Okay, so go ahead. So let me just check. In the meantime, if someone talks, I'm going to check the questions in a chat window. So okay, I have questions that's coming in below. So Prathamesh is asking a question: is it required to be ML engineering for MLOps role? Okay, if your question is, I mean, let's say if you want to get into MLOps role, do I need to be an ML engineer? Definitely not. Any DevOps engineer can become MLOps engineer. Any software professional, they can able to become MLOps engineer. There is no need for you to become a data scientist to get into MLOps also, Prathamesh. Yep. Okay, that's good. So let me just scroll down. Let me just read out some of the questions that we do have. So okay, so Dinesh is asking any special discounts for webinar participants. Yes. So currently we are running, let's say the free upgradation offer. Dinesh, I guess I have mentioned the free upgradation offer that we are running so far. So I mean, so let's say, for example, yes, so here we go. So let's say by registering for a basic plan with just 40,999, you can able to get advanced plan, as well as, let's say, if you want to go, let's say if you're looking for the topmost plan, which we call it as advanced plus, just by registering for advanced plan, which is costing 43,999, you can able to get the advanced plus plan. Okay, so if you're looking for some customizations, yeah, so I would not going to reveal here. Maybe you can able to directly call me so we can able to discuss. Let's see what customization that you're looking forward here. Okay, Dinesh, if you're looking for any alternative option, I would recommend you to just call us. I have already shared my contact numbers. I'm going to share these links once again in the chat window. You can reach out in both the numbers. We can help you in customization, right? So then we have Aptar is asking a question. Is a market. Yes. Okay. So we have a question from up there. Is this a market or a company access of people who don't have an experience in ML and data science, especially in MLOps? Okay. So here, let's say after you're not focusing, let's say for example, you're going to say that I want to become a data scientist, then definitely that's a different ball game. But consider that if you are a software professional, right? Consider that any software professional has an idea of how software works, right? So some automation, how the kind of an automation works, right? So can you become an MLOps engineer? Definitely yes. So what is the proof, right? You don't want to take my word. You can just go ahead and listen to the testimonial of the participant, Deepali, that I'm talking about. So she is up there. Probably you might be from an IT background, right? I don't know. I'm just assuming that you might be from IT background, but Deepali is not from IT background. She's a mechanical engineer, right? So she could able to do it in quite in 2 to 3 months. Why not Aptar couldn't able to do that, right? Yes. So you don't need to be a data scientist to become an MLOps engineer. That's a concept. But let me just compare this with a DevOps. Okay. So consider that you want to become a DevOps engineer, but you are not a software developer here. You don't develop a code. You don't write a code, right? There is someone called software engineer who builds an application. As a DevOps engineer, you take that app, you build it, test it, and deliver it. Similarly, an MLOps engineer is not a data scientist. You don't build a model. A data scientist is someone who makes a model, and you take it, build it, and test it, and deliver it to the production. That's how it's going to work, right? Okay, that's good. So then we have Muhammad is asking a question. So Muhammad, so how long you will be getting an access to the recordings? So in a stage one, I mean, you'll be getting an access to the recordings for the 1 year. Because why we provide an access to 1 year? Because we are talking about a cloud. Because this cloud platforms are keep on changing. The UI that you have today, it might not be existing tomorrow. The libraries, the dependencies, you might not be having. But based on your request, we will be extending your recordings for the next year, next 1 more year that you need. It depends on your requirements, but what you will be having an access to the lifelong the resource materials, the repositories will be keep on updated. So even the UI is changing, the projects, the repositories will be keep on updated. Okay, that's a good question. Someone is asking a question. Sharath, you will be teaching so many tools. Will that be a confusing in a scenario for a hands-on? Definitely not. It's a good question what someone asked. So let's try to understand this. Okay, so consider that. So you know what is, for example, okay, here we go. Let me just go back to that particular screen, right? Okay, so let's say just want to mention something, right? So 2 plus 3 is 5, there's no doubt about it, and 3 plus 2 is also 5, right? So where you put it, it doesn't matter. The same thing how it works. So consider that if I go back to the tools that we're going to talk about, so consider that yes, we're going to discuss about various different tools, right? So consider that here we're going to talk about how to use this DevOps tools on top of AWS or Azure or GCP, right? That's how it's going to work. But underneath it, the way DevOps work is never going to change. Whether you use AWS tools or Azure based tools or GCP based tools, the way DevOps works is exactly same. But only thing that you need to differentiate and understand here, the UI, the workflow on every cloud platform. The DevOps is now going to change actually, right? The same thing works in any other open source tools that we are talking about, right? So for example, we are talking about a Kubeflow. A Kubeflow is open source framework that runs on Kubernetes. We use it for building an open source ML pipelines, right? In a similar fashion, let's say we will be exploring a cloud-based tools, an Amazon SageMaker Studio, or maybe Azure ML Studio or Vertex AI, right? So obviously, underneath it, how MLOps works, how data science works is going to be same, but the UI, right, the kind of a features, the tools, what they have is going to be different, right? How you use it, how you build your own project out of it based on your project requirement tomorrow in your organization, that is going to be changed, right? But underneath how MLOps is going to work, that is not going to change actually. Okay, so Ajit is asking whether we will be covering a ETL pipelines here. No, this is not a data engineering program. We don't cover how to build an ETL pipelines here because that comes under data pipelines. But do we touch upon the ETL pipelines, all those stuff? Yes, because as part of our curriculum, we do cover Apache Airflow. In Apache Airflow is specifically dedicated tool that is built for data pipelines. Yes, as part of module number 15, you have a recordings of a video where we will be covering ETL pipelines basically. So that is not biased towards MLOps. Just to understand, let's say Apache Airflow, you'll get that particular example, Ramesh. Yes, we touch upon that. So what level of ML is required for MLOps? So this program that I'm talking about, it's part of machine learning and MLOps together, folks, right? So machine learning is all about taking a models and deploying a models to the production, right? So MLOps, this MLOps specialization program covers both ML and MLOps, Ramesh here. Okay, so Abhishek is asking a question: is this a job assistant program in advance, or do you have a tips app with companies where you can get interviews? Yes, so that's a good question. So let me just tell you. So where we really want to focus on, and where we don't want to mostly focus on. Yes, do we provide any job updates? Yes, we do. We are connected with an organizations inside and outside industry, but consider that today we can able to pour in hundreds of JDs to you, right? So let's say today I can able to share you hundreds of JDs into ML ops, ML engineering, but this is not going to add a more value to you because you can able to do the same exact things, right? So because at the end of the day, even I am sharing a JD, whether you are getting job calls from your own job portals, I don't think so it's making much difference here, right? So but at the end of the day, whether you're going to whether I have shared the JD, whether interview got scheduled, whether you got a JD, interview got scheduled, I'm not going to, we are behalf of you, we are not going to take an interview, you're the one, right? So getting your interview calls is not a biggest deal, right? But the question is, how are you going to clear that interview, right? So how are you going to get ready for that interview? How are you going to face the technical round of an interview? How are you going to answer the questions? How are you going to demonstrate that you have an expertise in getting an MLOps engineering job? Maybe you want to get a lead positions, an architect kind of a positions. So maybe they might be asking you to understand, I mean, explain the complete overview of a project what kind of an architecture that you implemented, why you implemented, so whether it is a scalable and cost efficient architecture. So how are you going to explain that? That's where we want to focus, making sure that you can able to clear any technical round of interview that you're going to attend. Yes, we do share this job updates, whether you sign up for our program or not, whether you've been, in case if you're part of our any webinars including this, if you're part of that, we will be triggering emails for that, right? So that's how it's going to work, Abhishek. Yep. Okay, folks, please go ahead and unmute your mic. If you have more questions, let's have a conversation. So you can also unmute your mic and we can have a conversation. Yep. So I've already unmuted your mics. You can able to also talk to me. So let me just check few more questions. So yeah, so after doing this hands-on project, can we get a real-time experience? Yes, definitely yes, right? So obviously you can able to put in let's say the kind of a projects that we have built for especially the level 4 architecture projects that we will be building in this particular program. They are fully eligible to mention on your resume. Okay, that's perfect. So Abdul, okay, so he's mentioning I am from IT background, I am from cloud architect. That's awesome. So that means you can, I mean, you can able to easily transform into MLOps because you're already coming from a cloud architect background. So you do understand how things work, and so that a client comes and asks you, okay, I want to build a e-commerce business on top of AWS. You have a knowledge to build a scalable and cost-efficient solution. The same thing works. The same thing goes into the MLOps actually. Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. So, okay, Dinesh is asking a question. Is that mandatory for a data scientist to have MLOps skill sets? I guess data scientists are the most, I mean, data scientists are the first person who need to have an MLOps skill sets. I guess that is something what every job description says, right? And that's what exactly every recruitment says, actually, Dinesh. Yep, that's perfect. Okay, go ahead, folks. If you have any more questions, feel free to just unmute your mic and talk to me, or you can also mention it in a chat window. I'm going to spare a few more minutes. I'm going to share a links once again in the chat window. The first link is for the registration. The second link where you can able to download a curriculum, and third link where you can able to download free ebooks. And a quick recap again on the offers that we do have. So basically, we do have a three different pricing structures. We call it as basic, advanced, or advanced plus plan. So see what you are looking forward from this particular program. So consider that basic plan is just designed for upskilling only. So if you go for advanced or advanced plus plan, so you can able to get some premium support features like bonus rate attendance opportunity. I mean, by signing up once, you'll be given two chances to take the live sessions. You can attend the November batch, including a November batch. You can also take a January batch, and right next batch after your current batch, right? And you also get the 6 months of technical job support that I mentioned, which you can able to use it for resume preparation. You can use it for preparing for interviews, and also for a support in your job and on job support, right? So when you go for the topmost plan, so here you're going to get 1 year support instead of 6 months support. Just imagine right now, if you go ahead and sign up for advanced plan, you can able to get an advanced plus plan with 1 year support, and you can able to get started with this program in next 24 hours. You get an access to the recordings in next 24 hours. You can go through the recordings. Parallelly, you can start attending the live sessions basically, right? Yep. So let me know if you have any further questions that I can able to help you with. So we have one more question in the chat window. Okay, so I mean, definitely yes, Abhishek. So when you're talking about any experience which is more than 5+ years of experience, you could able to see that that can comes under a lead positions in MLOps. And there are beginner level positions, at least I would say, let's say 1 to 2 years of experience candidates also, they are fully eligible for applying for the interviews. There are positions for that. Yep. So there are positions for junior MLOps engineers. I mean, there are MLOps lead, and you will be seeing an MLOps engineers who will be working along with them. Yes, I mean, we do corporate training. That's a different. Let's say if a corporate is looking for a training where they're looking for a team to be upskilled, we do that. Yes. Okay, so let me know, folks. I'm going to spare a few more minutes. If you have any questions, please feel free to mention that in a chat window. Please make sure you go ahead and occupy your seats. Especially for this offers, we do have just three seats left. I mean, if you want to be part of free upgradations, the next three registered participants, they're going to get this a free upgradation offer. So let me know if you have any further questions post the demo session. Please feel free to reach out to me. You can call me if you have any further questions. We can have a detailed conversation so we can understand your requirements, and yeah, and we can able to help you with that. Okay, saying that, yeah. So I don't see any more questions. I believe I answered all the questions. So thank you so much. I believe you enjoyed our program. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us. And this offer will be available till 21st of October. And I don't think that this offer will be available till 21st of October because we don't have just three seats left. Probably it might get sold out by end of today or maybe tomorrow morning, right? So okay. So do I need to have any specific kind of a hardware? Laptop, definitely not. I mean, a decent hardware with a minimum of 4 GB RAM, if you have i3 or i5, would work. Because here most of the use cases we would like to try to run it on a cloud. And yes, some use cases we'll be running it on your laptop, like Dockers, Kubernetes in a lower version. Yes, so we'll be covering details on LLM ops as well. Yes, this entire program, Asif, is also about LLM ops. ML ops and LLM ops are not different. Yes, we do have a specific module dedicated for large language model operations also. Only there are two things will be different: responsible AI and prompt engineering. But apart from that, anything else will be covered in this entire program, the ML ops. Okay, thank you so much. Enjoy your day. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much, folks. Yeah, bye. Enjoy your week.